Here's a message of importance to millions of people who are continually pale and washed out, weak and run down. Doctors will tell you that these conditions are often caused by a deficiency of iron. The iron you need to keep you physically fit and mentally alert. Medical studies show that 2 out of 3 women and many, many men lack the daily iron your body requires in a form your body can easily use and put to work.
For you.
Every dose gives you more than your daily minimum iron requirement.
We are weak, we are weak, we are not alone. We are striving for more.
So if you're not getting the iron your body needs,
we are weak.
if you feel weak, run down, and are easily upset, start taking iron today.
It's Friday, my dudes.
Thank God it's Friday.
And TGIF to you all. Welcome to Iron Realm Media's Have No Sphere. Only we're doing it on the Iron Realm Media podcast channel because apparently somebody thinks that we like to talk politics and stuff when we don't. So I don't know. Here we are. Thank you to everybody that's managed to follow us on over here. It's going to be hit and miss there for a while, I know. I think it was, well, about this time last year, we had to do this exact same thing. But as a surprise, we've got a big, awesome, exciting show for you. This is one that, because I trust Cammie's excitement, she was so excited. I was trying to crowbar time to get some show research done and just looking at stuff and just finding stuff out and just getting in to some of the background on our guests and just having a grand old time because I was super excited about this show because Cammie was super excited about this show. I figured, fuck it, that's good enough for me. So before we get into it, let's say hello to Mr. Walter Johnson. You might know him from his channel Flat Earth Head here on YouTube's. Walter, how in the hell are you doing, sir?
Hello, I'm fine. I'm here. It's Friday. We had a great show this morning. And like you, I did not have nearly the amount of time I wanted to go do research. And then when I went to the channel, turns out I'd already done it all. So been subscribed for a long time. Checking your channel out, sir. Can't wait to talk to you. And you guys hear me yapping enough. We're being punished. We'll figure that one out maybe too. And thank you guys for being here. Let everybody know we're on our backup channel. I tried to throw a few things out on Twitter, but who knows if Mr. Musk let those through. So
I'm not even sure I could create a community post on our main channel to let everybody know this is where we were. I couldn't find an option to do it. I don't know. So I just said, we'll just see what happens. What's the worst?
The quality folks are here already, and the rest will get their way over here. We know that.
Yep. Exactly right. Well, since we're just doing it, let's go ahead and knock out the third half of our trio there in the mornings on Ironworks on Truth Frequency Radio. Go ahead and sort that one out. Click and clack to Tap It Brothers. Mr. Zachary Zabala, you might recognize his channel on YouTube, Good Times for All. We know him lovingly as the Nomad, amongst other things. Zach, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, Josh. Hey, everybody. Doing great. Man, I just got fired up. I heard in chat that some children ruined the garden, Liz's garden.
What?
And yeah, there are some.
Hooligans?
Yeah, my first instinct was I would strike the fear of the creator into them. And that is my first. I feel bad when I get those feelings. But there were some young men down. This was maybe a year ago in the back. And I had been digging rocks out of the side of the hill, gathering topsoil dirt. And when I'd find a real big rock, I'd pull it out. And I built this nice big fire pit back there, 4 foot by 4 foot, nice big stacked rocks. And one day they're out there throwing them into the creek. And I was on fire, just on fire. And I went stomping out there, and then I caught him out front, and I went stomping out there. And right at the last second, I caught myself. And I was like, okay, don't strike the fear of God into them. Speak to them like they're human beings. And I did. And I explained to them that, hey, that's somebody's. You shouldn't do that kind of stuff, this and that. And then I got them to do some work for me for real cheap labor. I kind of made them feel bad and then told them, hey, you guys want to make $20? Because I had a whole bunch of lumber to move from the back of my truck to the backyard. But yeah, I wouldn't strike the fear of God into them. I know I wrote that, Liz, but yeah, I know how frustrating that has to be. I am so sorry, man.
When you say strike the fear of God, you mean just like get a little loud and make him think you're going to beat the shit out of him?
Yeah,
or you mean like some really down hardcore psychological warfare strewn out over like 9 months?
Rearrange the furniture in their room one night when they're sleeping or nothing like that. I wouldn't go that far, but
dropping little hints about vengeful wood spirits.
Now I have one of those voices where I can boom my voice and get it real deep, so much that I've only done it twice, yelled like that twice. And one was at my little sister. And right after I got done, she said, you're going to beat your children. That's what she told me because I yelled at her. Yeah. And my nephew, I yelled at him once. And then he was always so scared of my voice. Uncle Zach's loud voice. Don't let Uncle Zach use the loud voice. That was his thing.
Don't need to beat your children. As long as they think you're going to beat them, that's good enough.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that, man.
I'm sorry. As much as I want to say, I do want to let Kimmy introduce you because I know she was super excited to have you on, and I just love hearing her excitement. So, Kimmy, if you wouldn't mind, would you sort of give us a little bit of a background on how you know the guest and what you had to do to get him on?
You know what? I would love to. How about my host is disabled participant screen sharing?
Oh, yeah, that's me.
And it would help me if you would let me share a few things.
Oh, what? You think just because I have power, I'm going to distribute it equally amongst everyone?
Never. And like, I'm worse than Eero on this. I can't talk without pictures. It's just, how does it work? All right.
Did you get it? Okay.
I did. Sure. Oh, now this is not about our guests. This is the stupid news that like you just have to get away from. And this is why you have to, spend your time on things like what our guest is doing and what we're missing in mainstream. Yes, a woman got an STD in a car and now Geico may have to pay her $5.2 million. Why? Woman had sex with the guy. Yeah. She got in a car. She had sex in him. It was in a Hyundai Genesis, which was covered by Geico. She learned after the fact that she was infected with HPV and claimed the man knew he had HPV, but failed to inform her, leaving her with past and future medical expenses and mental and physical pain and suffering. She learned at Geico. Is that
the car's fault or Geico's fault or anyone else's fault but her own?
Well, you would think that's what anybody with common sense would think. But Geico denied the coverage and was and rejected her claim, which you would think that's what they do. After that, MO and the man entered arbitration, and the arbitrator found that the man had negligently infected her and awarded damages of 5.2 million, which were to be paid by Geico because it happened in the car and he had Geico insurance.
So people who have home
Car was-
insurance, I mean, when does it stop? When do people have to take responsibility for their own actions? Don't go around sleeping with people you don't know and you won't get STDs. It doesn't matter where you do it.
No, it's the car's fault.
Yeah.
I mean,
that
this
is-
says
oh
it is
my
the car's
goodness.
fault, and Geico did not take advantage of the opportunity to make it right and instead denied coverage because Geico didn't think that the car did it. I'm with Geico on this. That's how stupid our court is getting in that. But let's get away from that. Let's go to, that was just on my screen on the stupid things when you were in things that piss you off. Things that don't piss me off. Mike Wilkerson. Mike Wilkerson, you're right. I was thrilled. I was just thrilled to, I'm really messy and I'll put me on camera anyway. I was thrilled to, well, I won't put me on camera. I don't know how to work the screen here. Thrilled to have him on tonight. This is my first invite for a guest on the show that's not in my household or like a very, very, like, again, y'all know what I mean. So I guess we have invited Globebusters, my husband, you know, to the show, and Karen and that, and those are official invites, but it's somehow different when they're not in the house with you. This is my first official one, and I was very excited about it because you wanted somebody interesting. And my friends, a lot of them don't know about you, Mike. I know you. I've known about you. First time I think I heard about you was, if y'all remember, back in early 2018. Does this play? Do you guys hear the video?
I didn't hear it, but I see it moving.
I don't even see
Okay.
it moving.
You might not have shared with sound.
I'm going to stop share and do it with sound now because I don't think the video was loaded when I started the share. So I'm going to stop and start it again, okay?
Yeah, where did you guys make that video, Mike?
In Alex's studio.
It looked
I
like
wouldn't
you guys
say I
were
was
sitting
really
around.
involved in the making of the video. I was there for a small bit part, but he sweat blood on that one because it was the first time. I mean, what did he play, like 5 different characters? It was a nightmare for him to do that. That was like up to the point when he made that one. That was the most complex video he had done. It seems kind of simple compared to some of his other stuff, but no.
Yeah,
So
that
this
was
is
pretty awesome.
a lead into it, yeah.
They realize, but I feel like I'm banging my head on a wall every single time. If I just got me a bunch of new friends, then I'll be doing fine. No, I don't want to talk about NASA ever again.
Getting into the mood.
'Cause every time I talk about NASA, I lose another one of my friends. Yeah, every time I open my stupid mouth, something about NASA comes flying out. No, I ain't gonna talk about NASA again. So I went down.
There he is. I love NASA. God, that had to hurt.
To meet me a bunch of friends. Well, I had myself just a couple of beers and started talking about NASA again. Well, things got kind of ugly, and I was punched to the floor. No, I ain't gonna talk about NASA no more.
There you go,
No,
everybody.
I don't.
Mike laid out Alex Michael one time.
He got me back though. He got me
That
back.
had to be so much fun.
Yeah, in his video, oh god, I just drew a blank on the name. The one about lines in the sky. Chemtrail. No amount of evidence will ever persuade an idiot. No amount of evidence. You know, so I was one of the idiots. I had a shirt on. Idiot. So you got back at me.
At that time, were you a flat earther when you did the video at that time?
Well, I don't know that I would describe myself as a flat earther.
Flat earther,
or more of a globe skeptic. I lean more towards toroid earther, but I'm well aware that by all accounts and measures, there appears to be no curvature, and it measures flat everywhere you look. So, yeah, in that respect, I guess we're all flat earthers. But I saw kind of early on that it was going to be used in a very divisive way by the mainstream, and I think globe skeptic is much better, because that puts it back on them to present the evidence in favor of their model. But yeah. But I identified very much as a flat earther when I was there and in Denver, and it was a very long process for me, though. It was like 6 months before I was even really kind of able to talk about it, because there was so much investigation required. Like, some people just kind of get it right away intuitively, and they're like, oh, and they're fine with it. It wasn't like that for me. Not at all. Yeah. A lot of the best people in the world that I know are very much flat earthers. So feel glad to be a part of that group. But when it comes to my channel, I haven't really approached that topic at all, except just kind of hinted at it until recently, because especially when they started to talk about the sensorcery ship, that was going to be coming in relationship to flat Earth and Earth shape. I realized that there was a good chance that if I went too far with that all of the research that I was doing in relationship to the mountain, and then later the Heartstones, would just go poof, So I don't have enough time to start trying to build things up in other platforms and whatnot. So I just figured I would be as cautious as possible. And yeah, people who are paying attention, they know where I'm at with it.
That's exactly right. So I think most like mine, their first glimpse of you, they think was in that video, but it really wasn't the first glimpse of you. A lot of us remember you in the news, though we wouldn't have been able to place it. I'm going to share again.
Yeah, what year was that, Mike?
Oh, we're going to go into this. We're in Wikipedia right now, and we're
Was
looking
that
at.
I wasn't expecting this part.
Sorry, we're gonna go into your work, but we're gonna go into how people might know you, or.
I thought it was here for biogeology.
You are here.
Okay,
that's because he made the title without me even doing this. Things that I love about this person. I have my mic in person in Denver.
It was coded
I've had
enough.
my
I thought
back adjusted by him. Another talent he has, a really good talent he has.
What was that?
My back was adjusted by you, if I remember correctly. You fixed my back. Is that not
I did adjust you in Denver.
You did adjust me, yes.
It must have helped. You're still here. It's proof.
Fascinating other things about him. If you go into the list of computer criminals, you go to the very beginning, there was Mike. The very first computer criminal listed in 1986, the Sprinter. How did you get the nickname the Sprinter? I know we won't stay on this very long. I want to do this, but I find this fascinating, and it tells me a lot. The fact that you're able to do the logic required for this. You got a 2-week jail sentence and community service, which would mean you didn't really do damage. They were just doing it to send a message to clever people. Don't be so clever. But
yeah. Well, first of all, just a technicality. If you sort by sentencing date, I'm actually number 2 on that list, I think. So click on sentencing dates.
There.
Click that.
There you go. Okay.
Right. So that's Gerald Wondra. He was the first to ever be charged for the crime of hacking. Before him, there were other hackers that got caught and were prosecuted, but there were no laws on the books. So they were charged with things like fraud and espionage and other stuff like that. So there were hackers before, but I was the first to actually go to jail for the crime of hacking.
And you were, how old were you when this happened? Because this is 1980.
It's a dubious
Yes.
point of notoriety, obviously. But sorry, what was your question?
How old were
That's
you at
pretty
the time?
cool,
I'm
Mike.
curious as a mom.
I was 18 at the
18, so-
time. I had just turned 18 3 weeks before I got busted.
Oh, man.
So not only that, but I was living in Seattle at the time, and the law that had just passed in Seattle was the most progressive in the United States at the time. So the year after my case, they basically used that law as a model for the rest of the nation. So that in '86 they passed the Computer Crime and Fraud Act, which I think it still exists in a newer version and form, but that was, when they really started the sting operations and busting a lot of hackers around the country. But I was the first in Seattle or in Washington to be tried under this this particular bit of legislature, and I had the good fortune of having the prosecuting attorney was the one who penned the law, and he was the one who was assigned to my case. So they basically, like you said, they wanted to make an example of me and try to deter other teens from getting into this, because this is before War Games. War Games came out. Well, no, War Games came out. I started before War Games, but War Games really kind of was what brought it into the mainstream consciousness.
Now, yeah, War Games came out a little bit after that, and I looked into that. They said that there was somebody else they used as a prototype for that. But the fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is if you look at the story of War Games and you look at the person that they supposedly used, who they paid, money to use, and if you look at your story, the Seattle area, so many different things about it.
Gosh, I never even thought about it.
In my, I looked at it and I said, "Are you sure you were not?"
It can't be the case. It can't be the case because I didn't get busted until '85. War Games came out in '83. I had already been active about 18 months or so at that point, as a, just a hobbyist who was just beginning that journey and learning new things and learning how to game the telephone system so I could start to call long distance, so I could reach the bulletin boards that were in different parts of the country. And you asked about my handle, the Sprinter, and the funny thing was my handle originally was the Guardian, because I really had these kind of glorious visions of how it was going to be as I got into computers, and that I was going to be this power for good, like a Robin Hood of the digital era, so to speak. So I thought, oh, the Guardian, that's a really good handle. And then I was about 2 or 3 months into it, and someone on one of the bulletin boards was like, "Hey, isn't it spelled G-U-A-R?" And I was like, I had taken second place in the 7th grade spelling bee. I knew how to spell, and no, I had spelled it G-A-U-R. So I was so embarrassed by that fact that I just decided, all right, I'm just going to scrap the whole thing entirely. And I came up with the Sprinter because I was using sprint codes to make long distance calls at the time, but I was also a sprinter for high school track. So that was how I became the Sprinter. But
did you like the movie Sneakers when you were young?
Sneakers was good. That was really kind of the first one that I felt, had some authenticity to it. War Games, there was some of the stuff that they showed there was authentic as well, as far as different tricks that he could do. But there were little errors that pissed people off. Like, he went to go use the acoustic coupler modem. It was the handset that you put down into these 2 little cups. That was back when things were really slow. Like, my first modem was a 300 baud modem, and you watch the text just going across the screen really slowly like this, and then when 1200 baud came, it's like, why does it need to be this fast? It's too fast, But the acoustic coupler, like in war games, when they put the thing down, he was dialing out using what's called a war dialer, to dial all the numbers in a particular prefix to listen for computers, to see if there was something to try and get into and play around with. And so he was doing all these dialings out through an acoustic coupler modem, which is not possible. So it was little stuff like that pissed off me and my buddies. And it wasn't until really Mr. Robot, this series had 3 seasons. That first season of Mr. Robot was absolutely amazing, and they had people on staff to make sure that everything that was being done in the series was actually possible, and the stuff you saw on the screen matched what the hacker was supposed to be doing at the time. And I'm not up to date on all of that stuff because I got out of it at 18. But it looked pretty good to me.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I'm a stickler when it comes to movies. I dabble around in lockpicking just as a hobby. I figured it'd be something neat to learn, and it's fun. Every time you open a new lock, it's like you get this feeling unlike any other feeling. But in every movie, none of them ever do it right. I've only seen one movie, I even forget what movie it is, where they actually show somebody using a lockpick correctly. Out of all the movies out there where it shows people lockpicking, none of them are doing it correctly. And yeah, that always drove me nuts when I'd see somebody and they're taking 2 picks and sticking them in the lock. It's like, oh my God, this is just ridiculous. So yeah, I know how you feel about that. It irks you a little bit when you see something in the movie and it's like, no, that's not how that works in reality.
Well, you reckon they got to know that. You think there's somebody there saying, well, you can't show them how to actually do it. We got to give them a little misdirection.
Yeah. Well, there was a movie I saw recently that it was about safe cracking. It was actually pretty impressive. I have no idea how accurate it was, but it was very grandiose in the way that it was put together, and the listening and the complexity of these mechanisms. It's fascinating. Lock picking was very popular among hackers. There were all kinds of different text files that were floating around, and e-zines that shared all kinds of subversive knowledge, and lock picking and everything to how to make your own explosives, and all the stuff that the government likes to paint out anyone who's found with that kind of stuff as some subversive that's going to take over society or something. But it was just basically like something everybody had, because a lot of it was interesting, how to make calls for free, how to actually start to hack the telephone system itself. That's a form of hacking known as phreaking with a PH. And there are all kinds of different ways of manipulating the phone system to do what you wanted to do, whether it was make long distance calls or conference calling or emergency interrupts. And then, the real, the holy grail of phreaking was something known as BLV, which is busy line verification. So basically, if you knew how to do this, you could do remote wiretapping from anywhere. So even the intelligence agencies weren't able to do that because they had to get authorization on that. Now it's all digital, so it's like it's all happening anyway. Nobody has to do anything. It's all being recorded for future use. But so it's definitely an interesting time. And now here we are having multiple, video calls. And but when I was in it in the very beginning, we were on these teleconferences called Alliance teleconferences that were built for basically corporate use so that they could do, large conference calls, and you would call into a number and you would set it up, and then you could call out and you could connect to, I think, as many as like 50 people, 50 lines. Anything above like 12 got kind of unmanageable because there was no way to mute people like you can now. And sometimes it was just crazy, but I was up all night on those things, and you'd fall asleep with the phone next to your ear, and you'd wake up because the conference was still going, and then every once in a while the authorities would show up and scare everyone away. But for the most part, those lines were used by hackers for years without it ever being a problem, and no one ever got busted for it. The theory was that they were using it for tax write-offs, for fraud, and makes sense. It's like nobody else was using the service, but they could get reimbursed for it through insurance. So we kept them afloat, maybe.
Part of the reason I went down this alley of your history is of course my personal experiences with my 18-year-old son, and some of the things like getting delivered couple-inch packages of legal papers saying cease and desist and different things that get your attention. So that has me. But more than that, in the truther movement, it's the type of mindset you have to have in order to do what you're doing, be it hacking or, again, you're conferencing, and the different type of history that you have with it. It's connecting all the pieces, looking how to connect realistic pieces, make things happen, take, what's relevant, what's not relevant. Like you said, when you watched the movie, it drove you crazy because there were areas where, no, that wasn't accurate. And your, I would call OCD, which I'm going to call a necessary component to the personality, that's not real, that's not right. It bugs the hell out of me. It's that sensation that you have when things aren't real, because you're looking for truth and things aren't truth, even if it's like harmless. In a movie, they grate at you. It's a personality trait. It's again, where it's not, they didn't put that in the movie to grade at you because of they did it for thematic interest in who's going to know. But as
because it looked cool with that dialer going. That's the only reason you did it, right, Mike?
but with Mike, it's right. It's correct. You're like,
well, it was easier for the audience to understand what he's doing if all of a sudden there's just a number on the computer,
right, a visual
and a tone.
Exactly. Right.
But that should drive you crazy. It's not real, and it's something
that happens. I have an OCD
solvers.
quality. I can also be a slob, but
and they do have to be careful
with
about
sloppiness.
The way they show those things, because next thing you know, thousands of kids are trying it at home. I mean, the guy showed up on the Tonight Show whistling into a telephone and making numbers happen. So me and my friends spent the next 4 months doing that. So you have to be careful what you let go through.
Yeah, there were a couple of magazine articles that were written, and then there were, little exposés, and then it just exploded everywhere. It's like people were like, "Oh, really? That's a possibility." It never occurred to them.
But it is.
People had been doing it.
Yeah.
No, people had been doing it for much earlier than, like I said, before there were PCs. That was going for at least a couple decades.
Wow.
So let's apply your mindset and your critical mind and problem solving and attention to detail and attention to, again, that quality that you have that, oh, this isn't right and that's not right. Let's look at that and see what you're doing now, because a lot of people who are not familiar what you're doing now, and we'll premiere this up on our channel too, because I didn't realize our channel just got taken down, and so we're on a backup right now, so I can't wait for more people to see it. But what you're doing now, the Stellium 7 channel, I'm going to take you back to some of the early works. Unveiling the Titan Part 1, conclusive proof Titans exist. I highly recommend this video for everyone. What Mike does and why, like with me, once I met him, it was almost a burden relieved off of me, because it's like Zach's around me all the time. I'm going in different directions between the magnetics and the model and the sun and the moon and the way they work and all of these different things. And I kept on running through references in the ancient texts about the Titans and about like physicalities and things that very much did not seem to be described in fantasy, and really these parts when putting together what the world will look like, and that it's part of the story. What Mike is doing is he's going about it not in a way of pareidolia, where we all look at clouds and say, I can see an elephant in the clouds, I can see a dog here, and look what's over there, a giraffe. And we all know we can look at leaf patterns. You can look at any patterns and you can kind of imagine what they may be, just like he's showing on here. You can look at that and say, like, are there tests? And it gets your imagination running. But these mountains that exist in the literature, and what are the chances they're real? He's taken it a step from pareidolia to testing. He's looking at testing, like where the cavities are, the structures of them compared to the actual beast. He's taking it scientifically down one step at a time. He's working with and doing debates with other PhDs. When I say other, I'm not saying he is one, but I'm saying he's doing it with people very credible and experience in this, and it's not just, oh, this looks like this, so therefore, wow, this mountain looks like a elephant, so therefore all mountains must be elephants. He's taking each piece individually, each rock he's picking up and looking at qualities for it, and is testing it through some amazing boundaries. I happen to think these connections are there. I do not think all rocks, and this is where like I'll make points just because, like what you said about that piece of the movie driving you crazy, that the dialer was wrong. I have to admit I have some of that OCD present in me, a lot of it. So when I hear people saying that all mountains are old trees or old tree stumps, or all mountains were buildings, melted bricks, or all mountains are titans, or all, anytime that you put in all this is that, it triggers me. I have to say, and it's probably an unfair because people are just trying to make a point.
I'm right there with you, Kimmy. It's very fair. Go right ahead.
But yeah, it is a, we'll put it out because it's in the community. It is a trigger just to put out all. The funny thing is I think that some mountains were titans, and I think that some mountains might have been old trees, and I think that some mountains are melted brick or ruins of brick. Look at Petra and things like that. I believe each one of the statements has some truth in it that gets washed out as soon as you call everything that. It gets completely, diluted. It completely went, as soon as you make the observation of everything is this one thing, it takes every bit of specialness and that out of it. So I'm not quite sure, because I'll argue with you if you are on here. I don't think that you will, because you've always been a realist. I don't think that you think every rock was a titan, and if you are, I'm going to take you up on it.
Definitely not.
But I do.
No, my answer to this, because I've had, like, Jerry Camp has done a couple of videos just mocking my channel and saying this is ridiculous, this is a melted building, and I have no problem with the whole melted building thing. I've seen footage, I've seen pictures of brick melted, I've seen landscapes that could totally have been, some of these, what they're calling Tartarian brick, infrastructure that looks like it got hit by something big time. John Levy's just got amazing footage of all kinds of stuff that covers these topics. So I'm more of the E, all of the above category. I think everything you mentioned, I think that volcanoes themselves, they may be tech, they could be, for all I know, I mean, what happens to a big what do you call these piles where you put all your food and like landfill or compost, like a giant compost pile. These things can spontaneously combust and burn for ages. Well, if titans existed, maybe volcanoes are titan dung heaps. I don't know what coal mines or
they catch on fire all the time.
Yeah. I think a lot of the mines in general are probably, they were mining the root structures of the ancient trees and the titans as well. I think a lot of the buildings that the what many are calling the Tartarian structures were they mined the titans, and they made use of those materials to build their structures. And so yeah, I think it's a little bit of all of that stuff. That's my sense. And the same thing with the whole Earth shape thing. I think it's a false dichotomy. Everyone's like, oh, is it a globe or is it flat? And then you've got, so many of the ancient cultures have the cosmic egg model, which is also a globe of sorts, but it's kind of turned inside out, and so I think it's all, the Hegelian dialectic, it's divide and conquer, get us arguing and quibbling amongst ourselves about whether it's flat or whether there's curve or what, and in reality, it's something probably more fantastic and grandiose than any of us can even fathom or imagine. And I think that I've learned a tremendous amount, watching Globebusters over the years, because I was turned on to things like Ken Wheeler. I was turned on to the Primer fields, and these are things that went a long way to helping me form what I think is a far more complete cosmology now than what I had in my mind based on what I was fed by NASA and Hollywood and the sci-fi movies growing up, which I was a big fan of. I was a huge sci-fi tech guy. I loved, books on quantum physics and philosophy and all these different subjects, because it just all synergized in this grandiose universe. And I still think it's grandiose, but it's far different from what they're telling us. And
Right.
Actually, far more beautiful.
If it was what they're telling us, they wouldn't need to be faking so much shit, and clearly they are.
Did you want to be the last starfighter too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, yes.
Definitely.
Well, Mike,
Like,
you
kid
have
plays a video game and then gets like, How could you not want to be that kid? I dreamed of space and but I, before I met Alex, because obviously Alex was my red pill when it comes to this topic. I had for about a year been going through a pretty major awakening to a whole lot of other rabbit holes and the ways in which they connected that had nothing to do with Earthshape. So I was already reeling because major portions of my mindset and upbringing and childhood and all, it just got like swept out from under me. And then along comes Alex with, hey, did you ever look into the flat Earth thing? And my first thought when he said that was, oh no.
Oh no! This guy's a nut job.
He didn't just go there, did he? Like, well, you got it. Because we were. I mean, the way we met was fun. I can come back to it in a second. But we were both checking off the boxes. Like, oh, what about 9/11? Did you look into that? Yeah. And you know about chemtrails? Yeah. It's like boom, 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 boom. And then, as he was leaving my office that day, that was when he brought it up, and I just kind of shook my head when he left, and I'm like, how can anyone believe something so stupid? And I knew about the moon landings potentially being faked, and I'd looked at a bunch of the footage, but it never once occurred to me through my whole life that they might have been faking everything since, because there's the ISS up there and it's filming us, all the time, and there are all these things that I just took for granted as being real because I had seen them on screen. And then of course Hollywood is prepping you to believe all that stuff. I showed my kids like the first episode of the first season of the original Star Trek, and they were like 10 or something, and 8, maybe 12, 10 and 12, and they literally laughed me out of the room. I thought, oh, we're going to get into Star Trek together. I'm going to start them with the original stuff and then work our way into the next generation. And, oh my God, thank God they had more discernment than I did, because they saw right through the bullshit. And, the lunar lander, I mean, come on, give me a break. It's just, there's
True
so much.
Story. When I saw that thing, I was 8 years old at Cape Canaveral. The first thing I said when I saw it to my father was, okay, where's the real one? No joke. That was what I asked my dad. And he's like, nope, that's it. And I was like, no. I mean, the legs on the thing look so flimsy. There was no way. I knew. But of course, I just believed it, wearing my NASA hat and, all that kind of stuff. Just when your parents tell you that, that's
and
how
Dad was there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Dad believes it. It's got to be real. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Dumb was I.
And then
listen.
as far as Alex goes, a few weeks later, I saw him again, and he brought it up again, and I'm like, oh God, he went there again. Okay. It's like, now I've got to debunk him. So, I mean, how long can that take? 5 minutes at most, maybe 10. I'll just go online, I'll find this and that. And so So we started to go through this WhatsApp process because we were already kind of friends before that, and hanging out a little bit. I had I initially saw his wife Shelley as a patient, and then later I was doing an art exhibition, and the two of them came to the art exhibition. He really liked the art that I produced, so that was how our conversations initially started, and then they got really wild really quick after that. And it wasn't very long after that when I started to open up to the whole idea. I started to look into empirical tests, and I remembered that I'd seen Ibiza very clearly on some winter's days here from the peninsula. So when you look at that mountain, its snout kind of extends forward, and then it ends at a point that sticks out into the Mediterranean. And then off that point, 90 kilometers away, 60 miles, is the island of Ibiza, and even further away is Majorca. And I went out there, and just with my phone, I didn't even have like a P900 or anything. I took some photographs with my Samsung, and brought them back and zoomed in and looked at them on the computer, and there were very clearly discernible peaks, and there was a valley between the two tallest peaks, and then you could see the horizon, and you could see the space between the horizon and the top of where the valley began. And I started doing the math on it because in high school my best subject was geometry. I love geometry, so I immediately understood like what's involved. If it's supposed to be flat, then if it's supposed to be curved, there's got to be a discernible curve, and we've been taught about the boats and all that. And so I started doing the math on it, and there was nothing missing. There should have been 200 meters missing from the island at that distance, and none of it was gone. That's an interesting one there. Pause. So I don't think for a second that is an elephant. There's a whole bunch of there are a bunch of pictures that I put in that first video that I would never put in now. There's also a bunch of pictures that have made the rounds in the mud fossil community that are presented as just these are titans, and a lot of those have been manipulated. I don't think that one's been manipulated though. I've seen that one from a lot of different angles, and I've been on Google Earth. That one looks the way it should. That I've been told by people from the other side looks totally different, but I don't have a problem with that because the whole thing looks like it's embedded into a flow above it. But so first I got introduced to mud fossils, just randomly coming across it on YouTube, and then from there, that video actually to the right there, Petrified Titans by J Dreamers, that was a big one for me.
Yes.
Because he was taking the works of Roger Spur and the things that he was talking about as far as paramineralization and rapid petrification, and he was linking that to mythology and showing these overlaps between different mythological themes from different civilizations that we had Paul Bunyan in the US, but a lot of cultures have these titanic beings in their mythology that are it's just a part of their history to the indigenous very often.
The Atlas Mountains was supposedly
yes, absolutely. The Native Americans here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble, guys.
Yeah.
I had to switch over to my phone because of a storm knocking out my power. So I'm probably stepping on everybody trying to talk. I apologize.
Oh, you're fine.
No worries.
You're
No
just
worries.
fine.
No, you haven't stepped on us. Yeah. So the thing I wanted to say about the Petrified Titans, what was it? I lost the thread. I was saying that a lot of those photographs that were making the rounds and everyone was sharing have now been shown to be photoshopped. But there is so much good footage out there. But the problem is everyone's just looking at things from one angle or more or less one side, and it depends on the lighting, and it depends on sometimes the vegetation, and there's not a whole lot of discernment there when it comes to this. And if something looks like something, then it is something in their world. And exactly, pareidolia. It's very important.
Again, pareidolia should be a jump-off spot, but just because something looks like something, it should be maybe I should investigate further. It should be a complete jump to it is.
I learned the term from Jay Dreamers. I mean, I intuitively knew it as a concept, but I didn't know the word for it until that video. And so that was really, I mean, I was already on to the earth-shaped thing, ancient cosmologies. I was big into mythology as well, big fan of Joseph Campbell's writings and
Yes.
cross-cultural study of mythologies. And I didn't know about like syncretism and Santo Spinaci, but I was intuitively a syncretist growing up. I had very unusual background with my parents were hippies in Southern California, and I grew up. 1 year we lived in a small ashram, and people were meditating and chanting in the mornings, and it was very alternative upbringing, and it wasn't Judeo-Christian at all. And so I can't remember why. It's starting to get late for me, so my brain's a little not as sharp as it is.
You're right at home, brother. You're doing
You're
good.
so doing good.
Yeah. So
anytime you're ready to step away, you just let us know. We don't want to keep you.
No, I do have more questions.
I can keep going. I'm just not. I wasn't remembering my train of thought, so sorry.
It happens.
We're taking you through, like we were talking pareidolia and the way that again, you'll jump there, but
yeah. So basically, the aha moment was because that mountain that you can see there in the upper right of the screen, which has been photoshopped, but that was photoshopped by the guy. I don't know if everyone's probably heard of Sibs on Insta. He's like specialized in all these photographs, and has a huge following. So he helped me because I didn't have any photoshopping skills whatsoever. The very first one of the thumbnail on Unveiling a Titan there with the clearly photoshopped tusks. That one I just found randomly online, and it was just it was hilarious because it was visualizing. You can see there's an indentation there. It's like it's the perfect spot for it to to be coming from, but it is Photoshop because it has to be.
It has to be.
So yeah, so then that was just kind of a nexus of a number of different idea threads, and then the other penny drop was Wakey's Geology Revived or Unveiled, or I can't remember what the exact title was, but he had a lot of great information in that video that made me realize that a lot of the kind of the cornerstones of geology might actually be sitting on shaky ground, which was not something I figured. Geology, that's a solid science.
It has to be right.
All of our
tectonics, come on, man, right?
All that stuff. How could that be
right?
wrong?
How we know it's perfect, right?
Yeah. So
I just had to start. I had a background in gemology, not geology, and then when I started looking into geology and seeing that what they were teaching you in geology on how rocks formed and everything was totally different than when you got into advanced gemology. What they were teaching you when you had to be able to detect if something was grown under the ground or above ground, because it was identical substance, and the only difference was one was grown above ground and one was grown naturally, one laboratory and that. So you had to get into how they grew, how they formed, and you can watch them grow. You work with people at laboratories that make them, and you sit and you talk to them in seminars, and you go over the processes and things like that so you can detect. So I had a really strong background in that in my own little world, and then I get into flat earth and I'm reading geography and how all of this stuff, I was completely blind to it in gemology because they keep you so busy. You just have work on your desk. But I'm sitting here seeing how all of this occurred, and they grew over millions of years, and and it's like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works in reality. Wait a minute, fossils, things in laboratories we can start fossilizing them in 2 days. It's not. And
you can see
over
crystals
a few
glow
years.
and grow in time-lapse photography. It's not.
Yeah, you can. I can put. I have a microscope here, and I can put solutions on a slide and watch crystals grow out of it in real time. I don't even need time lapse. You can see them at a micro level.
See, this has been one of the frustrating things for me in all of this research is that I've got no background.
Oops, sorry.
So I have a background in reality, but my background in reality does not match. It does not match geology in the way they see it forms, and they don't put gemologists, people that need to determine for legal reasons. Like, in other words, it's a bad mistake if you call something real and it's not on an appraisal. And the appraisal is for like a divorce or for a inheritance or whatever, where, you know, people need things appraised for legal things and separating. So you think you have to separate jewelry by value among siblings, and it's really important that you get it right. So
interesting.
I would call it a science of reality.
Yes.
Meaning that
interesting.
They have to teach you really how it works, because you have to determine for if you do geology, that's theoretical science when you say it takes like 300 years or 300,000 years to do this and 1 million years to do that.
It's not empirical science. That's the
It's
theory.
not empirical. It's not. It doesn't breed, you know, it doesn't cross over into reality when you can see crystals growing and rocks growing in real time, reproduce it in real time, and know that it does not take the time element, it takes the conditions element. What's important are the conditions. Are the conditions right? It's just like when rain crosses over to snow. It does it when the conditions are right, and it happens very quickly. That's how rocks form.
The terrain is all. The microbe is nothing.
Yeah. In history books, Titans, a lot of the times in the stories, there was a lot going on where you had supernatural powers and you could be turned to stone, and that was very predominant.
Yes.
But even on its own, fossilization, when it takes place and does the form, what happens is like the elements of what it was are putrefying, and then crystals are replacing it, but they have the boundary of the outside body to fill it, because that's where the elements were. In other words, it's the elements that are growing and putrefying and now under a condition to crystallize are in that one little area. So that little area produced those conditions for them to crystallize, and you can take the shape of it roughly on it, you know, your boundaries of it.
I just dropped a link into the chat. Could you play that one? Share that one? It's just a quick 50-second video.
I can. Tell me which chat.
This chat right here in Zoom.
In Zoom chat,
but it's a video showing one of these waterfalls where people hang things underneath this water.
Yeah, and you're talking about Mother Shipton's cave. She was also a prophet, apparently, and she talked about a lot of things that line up with, I think, Edgar Casey's readings and other people. But yeah, it's this extremely high mineral content water, and basically people hang there. They come and bring little mementos to basically petrify, and they hang there for like between 3 to 6 months.
Would you like me to play this now, Zach? I think it's here. And would you need audio with it? It may or may not.
I don't think so. I think
before you started, I just wanted to finish the thread that I forgot. So if you look on the picture there, Montgo, and then off the coast is Ibiza there, and that's it's really small though. It's not that big one. That big one is Mallorca. But yeah, it's right below the N in Montgo. That's 90 kilometers, and I did all the calculations, and then I got on Metabunk at one point because I figured, okay, I'm gonna use the most conservative Earth curve calculator that is out there, because they're the guys who were trying to debunk all the FE people. So that's got to be the most rigid of them. Yeah, so basically none of it was missing, and I ended up getting into a debate with them and they started talking about atmospheric refraction and other things. And it's funny because I was actually in the Flat Earth 24/7 Discord a couple of years later when Mick West came in to go head to head with QE and somebody else, I can't remember who, and he basically admitted, and it was live and recorded, that he had arbitrarily come up with the number that was used for standard refraction in his calculations. So
I called him.
Yeah, so he basically admitted to just fudging the numbers in order to make it. I mean, that's not what he was admitting to, but that's what he admitted to. but between, you know, being pretty good in geometry and studying a bit of math, and, you know, it was interesting. So I got into this whole dialogue, and I realized I'm not getting anywhere. And they basically switched the title of, because I was like, does the distance to Ibiza prove that the Earth is flat? And then they changed it, and then they added, no, it proves it's round after the title. And I was just like, forget those guys. But I should have gone back later when he admitted that he invented the standard refraction number.
You should have been talking to me too, because Zach was in the house and Bob was in the house, and I was throwing things.
I think this was before I knew you. It was before Denver. I went through that process.
So it was before Denver. Zach wasn't here, but I've gone through this temperament many times on the refractive index, because I am so nerdy that I've had a refractometer for over 30 years. My own personal one. Zach sees it, right? I know, in other words, this is something that's like I've been using when I worked, I used the instrument multiple times a day. I understand what refractive index is, and this is another like anal point.
There's like, aren't there 5 different kinds?
Well,
that's when it
first
gets
of all,
really complex.
It doesn't get complex at all. They make it complex, and it's very, very, very simple. It's very simple.
Well, it gets complex when they start talking about stellar refraction and then mixing that with terrestrial refraction. And they don't distinguish between the two. They just say refraction.
It's complicated because they throw shit in it. It only gets complicated because what is it when you can't dazzle them with brilliance? What do? You baffle them with bullshit. It gets confusing because they are baffling you with bullshit. Some really easy things I can tell you: 101 on a refractometer and 101 in reality. It doesn't matter if I have a little garnet, or we'll do a sapphire. It doesn't matter if I have, because the garnet's over the limit. It doesn't matter if I have a little sapphire and a little green sapphire, a big blue sapphire, and a medium orange sapphire. Different colors, different weights, different. It doesn't matter how big it is. I'm going to get the same refractive index on all of them. Why? Because they're going to bend light at the same. It doesn't matter if I stack them up, if I make it thicker, it's not going to add to your refractive index. That's not how it works in reality. The refractive index is a change that it bends when you go through a boundary. Like if you put a straw into water and you see it bend, that's an extreme. You're taking it from a gas to a liquid, and you've got a pretty extreme little bend on there, and that tells you, the angle it's burning, doing that.
Right.
If you get complicated,
so as you have
could
a change in density, the light bends downward towards the denser of the two, right?
Yep, that's simple.
So doesn't that also mean that it's bending the wrong direction for
not only is it bending the wrong direction to what they're saying, but it also, again, you're talking in the gases. The gases are in the 1.003, 1.007. You're talking the ranges that your gases are bending it are so much more minute than what you're doing, like showing a straw in water at that. In other words, it's a completely. You're talking about gases doing it. They're not going to get that extreme reaction that you're getting there, and having more of it isn't going to give you more of it. In other words, you don't gain refractive index with more of the material. It doesn't accumulate. It's retarded. The whole way they approach it is not real. We could have we could have a complete thing on you. I can show you with demos. I can demonstrate it on equipment. I can show you where it changes, and I can show you the minute numbers. But the way that they were adding up and doing it is retarded. That would be like saying nobody would be able to do their job in my old field. It would be like saying that you'd have to calibrate your equipment for every thickness. I mean, things have a refractive index, and I get
when all this was going on, it took me about 10 minutes. I went and researched, actual tests that were done on atmospheric refraction, and they came out to find that over 250 yards, it was so minute, they just said negligible. Right. It was in the millimeter.
Right. All I could do is I can throw it, and I maybe making it more complicated to you guys talking it, but it's not complicated. It's simple, and and my problem is I do things with my eyes and see reality. I didn't have to put the words to it before. I just had to recognize reality. But the reality of it is I'm listening to them and saying they're making this shit up. They're making it up, and they're getting it away with it because they're making it up, and they're talking like they know what they're doing, and nobody's going it's like you have to actually touch things to challenge them. You need to pick up a refractometer. You need to see how it works on things. Somebody don't talk about it unless you've got some equipment or you know what you're doing.
I've never even heard of one until now.
If you're going to talk about
there was a refractometer until just now.
Okay, in other words, if you're going to be like, call yourself an expert. I wouldn't have called myself an expert on refractive index, right? But it was something I did every day in my job multiple times. I would test things and assign values for it, right? It was just part of a daily routine. I wouldn't call myself an expert in that one area. I did a lot of things every day, but you can't touch it and not see how it works in reality. And what they were saying was like made up shit that nobody's tested in reality. In other words, it's like that's not how it works in reality. It doesn't get more. They keep on accumulating it as you go more, and it's like no, things that are thicker don't.
Well, yeah, they already know what their curve is supposed to be, so all they have to
do is back engineer the numbers. Yeah.
Well, and you can apply that same thinking to geology, to all of the ologies. Actually, I think they've all been weaponized in one way or another.
Some of the things I'm going to jump off a tangent right now because I can. Why I still have your mind. Some of the things I look at are the natural magnetics, and one of the things that got me, along with the gold and the other things. First of all, when we talk about the work you're doing, it hits on me that gold and silver, growing up in Colorado, around mining towns, and that. You learn that they form they form in veins. And that always had me wondering why veins, and they look like veins or something. So some of the gold and silver and the veins had me up there. But the other thing that has me in gemology or touching it, magnetic materials are an important class of iron-bearing materials that occur as iron oxides, which you've been talking about a lot. Magnetite, which everybody hears me talk about all of the time, a natural magnet. But there's another one, hematite. You guys are familiar with hematite, oxyhydroxides. And these, if you look at so many of these names, you're going to see the hema and the hemi in it.
Of course. Yeah, I never thought, of course.
And same with hematite.
Yeah,
what is going on? Do you want to know if, okay, I'm going to tell you something.
Hold on, you guys got to connect it for everybody. I know Mike gets it, but hemoglobin.
Okay. Hemoglobin, blood, blood. What? Okay, when you look at magnetite and maghemite, by the way, it's very commonly mistaken with magnetite. This is a commonly confused along with hematite is confused with magnetite and maghemite. If you wanted to do my job for a second and first of all say, is it magnetite? One of the first things I'd do is I would take it and I would streak it on a white plate. And if it was magnetite, it would streak gray. And if it was hematite, if anybody's got a piece of hematite at home or maghemite, if you put that on an unglazed white porcelain, guess what? It's going to streak red. That's why it's called hematite.
No.
It's got a blood. Oh, yeah.
Get the fuck out. Okay, so you just broke my brain.
Okay,
broke it. Because I've been into all of this forever. I've been into the whole blood thing. I've been into the whole stone.
Oh, honey, I've done streak tests before. We're going to do hematite.
The only minute that this all clicked in my head, Cammy. Holy crap.
We're going to do it for
you.
you.
Of course it's crystallized
it's all biology.
blood. What else would it
it's
be?
My
God.
Oh, look.
That's why I coined the term biogeology, because I felt mud fossils was also divisive, right? Because he had this theory about paramineralization, which is this slow exchange of materials over a long period of time. He's just saying that it's happening a lot faster than it does in mainstream geology's world, which is tens to hundreds of millions of years. But in his world, it could happen in a much shorter amount of time if everything's encased in mud. That was his main theory. I heard from somebody yesterday in the live stream that I did that he's been talking about more electrical kind of possible things, but I haven't heard any of it from his own mouth. That would be a really huge pivot in the direction of what I've been talking about for 3 years now, which the things that I found made zero sense based on mud fossil theory.
Some time ago.
Oh, Roger's talked about a ton of stuff for a long time. He's got, probably
Well,
over
the
1,000
electrical
videos.
stuff.
People
I
call
mean,
me a copycat and a pretender.
no, dude. That's how I found your channel. Between him and Jay, I know that's where because when I went to you, when Cammy clicked the link into, I dropped her link, and I was going to do the research. I was already subbed and had watched half your videos, and I'm like, well, no, I know this guy already. So yeah, I'm sure that's where I found you. Is going down. Roger is a rock star, man. I've been checking him out forever. So yeah, he's got
Yeah,
that
he's
whole.
also a bit stubborn and rigid.
Oh yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying.
he's
He's a
always right.
hardcore character.
Everything is
Oh, indeed,
100% with him.
He is always
Right.
And
yes.
everything, whenever I encounter people like that, I always pause and I kind of step back and I start to be more skeptical, because to me, the most knowledgeable people I know are usually the most humble, because they realize how much they don't know. And,
Right.
so they're a lot more pleasant to be around than somebody that's like everything that comes out of their mouth is an absolute. And I have a real problem with that. So
this is where I have respect for you,
Well,
and I'm so grateful you're here, because going into the
yes,
work,
my God.
you have such a reliable. I mean, some other people are getting some of the interest now is starting to go to your channel, but your channel is not fluffy. Your channel is not based on fantasy at all. You do the hard work on it, and in the background, it's like it's fun, because I almost feel like I don't have to cover any of it, because I almost feel like you've got my back, or you've got the world's back on it, because somebody is taking it seriously and not just trying to entertain people by saying everything is this and da 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 da. That you're doing the work.
Somebody's taking it seriously enough
touching
to
it.
engage in sensorship.
Yeah, sure.
Right, because the fifth video that I made, or it wasn't the fifth, but it was the fifth unveiling a Titan video, was about that. It was also about more discoveries in the eye, anatomical features in this cave that's the eye of Mount Go, which we didn't really go into at all yet. But so there was that, and then also basically, I mean, my sub count is at a standstill, and I've put out 7 videos, and I'm getting the highest views I've ever had, with the most watch time, the highest click-through rates, and
What's the number?
and my sub count is at 0. Like I'll get like 2 or 3 from a video, whereas
they're not promoting him. He's so good.
Yeah, the first 2 years of the channel, like every video I put out, I get 100 new subs. And then I did an interview with SGT Report, and that was before he got yanked from YouTube entirely. And he had 750,000 subs at the time. I got 6,000 subs in a week from that interview. I got a 700 from John Levy just mentioning my channel once.
That's probably when I found you.
And then yeah, and so for the last 7 videos, which is really interesting, because I've done a whole ton of disclosure about myself also, and my past, and I think some really interesting content, and some live streams. People are loving it. I had a lot of people watching live when I was doing some of these things, and like 0 new subs. So there's censorship on the mountain. There appears to be like, okay, we'll cap him at 18.5, because I've been there for quite a while. Yeah, so the more this gets out and spreads, the better. But I decided early on I wasn't going to do like I've seen on other channels, is just like keep repackaging the same information over and over and over again. It's really good for people, actually, because repetition, drums it in, and then they start to remember things, and instead of it just being like a mind blow, and then they go back to normal life. So it's good in that respect, but it's not my style. I have too many interests, and it takes too long to produce these videos. So at one point I took a year off, and then I took another 4 months off, not producing anything. So I don't have really that many videos on my channel, considering the number of subs.
Videos you have are so good. Hey, Zach, can you come in here a minute?
When you do your research, do you find yourself having to watch certain videos over and over and over again until you get it? Or do you move on and try to find another way to comprehend?
Well, I take in videos, I take in a lot of information, but surprisingly, when it comes to these subjects, you'd think I'd be really, really curious about learning everything I could about what does mainstream geology say about this, and what are some alternative theories, and I've been trying to just keep up with life and my chiropractic practice, and produce videos on the information that I've gathered, that maybe if I knew more, I wouldn't be so confident, but it's been a real a journey where I was introduced to some ideas, but a lot of these discoveries were epiphanies that came to me in the course of walking and observing and looking at things with new eyes. And I think if I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades. I'm not an expert in anything. I have no background in chemistry. I've got no background in geology, and here I am, supposedly, trying to take on an entire ology. It's been a strange strange time, actually. Yeah, there's Mother Shipton's cave. What isn't clear is what happens if you slice them like right through the middle. Are the insides petrified at all, or is it just encased in mineral? Same thing with Lake Natron. That's another, if you do an image search for Lake Natron, it's this place where basically things that fall in it don't come out because the mineral content is so high, and they end up getting encased in this mineral material. They look petrified.
So how long?
Well,
I'm not.
That's what I was going to say. Is I haven't had a whole lot of time to take in a ton of other content when it comes to this. So I've just been showing what I'm finding and the correlations and how it correlates to anatomy and histology, which is the subject of tissues. And then when it comes to all of these, I mean, there's literally thousands and thousands of different kinds of minerals and all this stuff. It's like, it's so outside of my realm of expertise. I was hoping that as I showed this information, other people with that kind of knowledge would come on board, and they have. I posted a video recently on my channel with a guy who's got a PhD in inorganic chemistry named Dr. Lenny Time, and he's totally on board with my findings, and he's actually, brainstorming, trying to understand some theoretical models about how that could happen, how that transmutation of elements could take place, because we know that transmutation happens in biology and nature. It's not really talked about. They tell us that these atoms are born in the hearts of stars, and then they supernova out into the universe, and then they conglomerate due to the magic laws of gravity, et cetera, et cetera. But the I lost the train of thought again. It's getting late. I'm having fun though. I don't want to go to sleep.
No. And we don't want to lose you. And man, look, this has got to be the first of many, mate, because you have beyond blown my mind tonight. Okay, this is so left turn, but not really. I was hoping we'd get back to this cave and Mother Shipton. I had in years, 25 plus years ago, probably, when I was researching psychic stuff, Edgar Casey, ran across her stuff, but never put the cave together with it all until now. Okay, so she's here in this area, allegedly born in this cave. So I did a real quick, rough and dirty research after y'all dropped my brain to the floor and the truth bumps broke out. Where I grew up, my family grew up on land that has been in my family forever. Upon that land is well water that is famous. People come to that land and get that well water and take it off. My uncle's house uses that same water table as its house water supply, drinking water, bathing water. The family that lived in the house, like, literally smelled of the mineral content of this water. My family I grew up with a family who had so many crazy psychic experiences. My grandmother saw centaurs walking through the front yard. There were ghosts. I mean, it was a typical psychic shine family. That was what I grew up with in the middle of this mineral content water. And now
Where's
you're telling
that?
us it's central Mississippi, St. Martinville.
Is that chalk
Simpson
in that
County.
Is that chalk that we're seeing?
Very, very chalky. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what would it be in the mineral like content?
Yeah, somebody asked me,
affect?
or somebody was talking about chalk being, part of Titans, because you see it in these just massive
What if
quantities.
it's the pituitary gland that's mineral contented, has come out into the water table? And that is increased in these people's area because it's in their body. It's in their, they're absorbing it in their.
You mean like a Titan's pituitary gland?
A Titan's pituitary gland. Holy shit. The truth bumps are all up and down my body right now, man.
I thought that's what you were suggesting. Yeah,
that is what I'm saying. What if it's pituitary gland mineralization that is making that water do what it did to Mother Shipton, do what it did to my family in the area?
The question is, as things as molecules undergo the process of petrification, however it happens, whether it's through massive heat or some kind of electrical plasma event, as that starts to happen, those molecules are going to denature. Just like when you fry an egg, the heat is breaking those molecular bonds, and it's instead of it being a nice molecule, now it's a mess. So I can't imagine the DMT molecule that the pituitary is so known for would survive a petrification process. This is why I haven't bothered to go and try and do DNA samples on a lot of the stuff around here. I mean, first of all, finding a lab just to do a CAT scan was a challenge. I did a CAT scan on a bunch of the stones that I've made videos about, and that took me quite a while. I ended up having to go to a veterinarian clinic that had a CAT scan because none of the central salud, sorry, that's the Spanish, the health centers, the hospitals in this region that have the equipment would do any CAT scans on the stones for me because they only would do it on human subjects. So that was a real pain. So, like, for example, when I did the CAT scan, I was hoping to see some of the internal structures, but these things are solid stone, and there are some chambers which you can see but you couldn't see any detail because the stone is way too dense for X-ray. Like if you X-ray an arm, you can see through the bone. It's radiolucent. So if there's any kind of a little crack or fissure, you see it as black because there's no material there to reflect back, I guess, on the radioactive bombardment. So the CAT scan didn't really reveal much, and I can't imagine that a DNA analysis would either. Maybe it would. Roger from Mud Fossil University, I don't think a video goes by where he doesn't mention his 3 DNA tests from some reputable lab. And who knows how reputable the lab was. Have those tests been repeated in other labs? No, but not to my knowledge. But he'll tell you that that's because after he pulled it off and did it, and got the results, that there ended up being kind of a broader lockdown on those kinds of testing for these kinds of subjects, which makes sense. I mean, you'd expect them to try and hide it if there's truth to it. So
obviously, I'm wondering if there would be some kind of sonar type way of,
I just want to say something about the
ultrasound.
chalk.
Yeah,
going back to your neighborhood, because I studied the crop circle phenomenon a lot.
Dude, we have got to hang out, Mike. We have got to hang out.
Yeah, I read.
I told you all.
I got to hang out
and
met Andrew Collins at a UFO conference years ago. Go ahead.
I saw some documentaries with Collins. He's in just about all of them, I think.
Yeah, he's amazing, man. His energy, like when you feel his energy, it radiates off him. He's amazing. Go ahead. Sorry.
I read a book called Secrets in the Fields by Freddie Silva, and that laid out the research in a very, very effective way. And then there were some documentaries that came out with the high definition aerial footage, and there were a lot of theories about chalk, because you have, in this part of England, you've got Stonehenge. There's an even bigger
Right.
circle
And
called
Glastonbury and all that,
Avebury.
right.
Avebury is the biggest of the Neolithic stone circles in the UK, as far as I know. You've got Adam's Calendar, which Michael Tellinger likes to talk about, down in South Africa as well. But in the area of Avebury and Stonehenge, you've also got these famous hills with the chalk diagrams.
The Penis Man. I can't remember the name.
So
but, yeah.
one of the big theories about the chalk was that there's there are all kinds of electrical effects that are happening as the water is flowing through it. I don't know if does chalk have piezoelectric effect? You would know, Cami.
I'm not sure.
Sorry, I had to
I
unmute.
think
I'm
so.
right now
Muted, right?
going in.
I
I didn't
think
get a whole lot of chalk to test in jewelry. It wasn't a heavy one on there, but I'm going to right now look at some of the properties, and I'll be able to tell you more in a couple of minutes based on it. What I did want to say is that when you're talking about the we don't know how the transmutation happens and things like that, I would suggest that you go away from your sciences and go into industry where they do know, and go into the jewelry industry and synthetics and how they make
Polymers,
how they grow, not only polymers, but how you grow crystals and how you grow all of the minerals. We can make gold. We can make anything that's in the ground. You can grow above ground. You just have to get the conditions right. Which again, diamonds are one of the fun, interesting ones, because we found when we actually grew them, they grow much better under low atmospheric pressure than high atmospheric pressure. The things you learn when you actually
It's not 1 million pounds for a million years?
No.
The man has to
Not
squeeze
at
it.
all, because we are growing.
That means they're not worth
now.
much. Damn. Don't tell the De Boers in South Africa.
I would, from
Send out a
a
hitman.
standpoint of wanting to know, even though you can make fun of the jewelry industry, and it should be made fun of, what anytime you have people selling little things for that much money, people are going to either figure out how to replicate or fake it. And in the case, it's gotten so the testing has gotten so good in with our equipment that now that in order to try to fake you out, you have to fake you out with the same thing that again is grown above above ground and grown by people instead of created. But it is happening. So you can create, if you go into fossils, you can go into the scientific in gemology and see how long they're taking to make the fossils. And just like right now, if you go to Yellowstone, trees are fossilizating while they're growing, because the fossils in that happen mostly around water. You need water. It's counterintuitive. You need
That's
water.
suspicious,
And
don't you think?
don't you think? But that's how liquids and that. I also recommend in your chat, I dropped in it for you to drop a link when you were doing a live stream, something called Crystals 1958. That
I've seen parts of it before, and I haven't gotten back to it since you dropped it. Sorry, I didn't do my homework. Sorry.
You don't need to, but I think if you do your homework on it and you watch how things, because I can do this, anything in the movie that they're doing as far as like we've made bismuth and I have slides and doing crystals, you'll begin to see, if you look at this and see how the elements, if they're in liquid and the temperature is around and melting out there, how they will grow. You can watch them grow in front of you and transmutate. It's again like watching cells reproduce under a cell with humans or plants. You can watch it in process with a simple desktop. I have a $115 desktop microscope. It's not even expensive. I did make some adaptations on it, but it's, again, we're not talking about really expensive equipment. Zach's going to come take me away from chalk because I'm being boring on it, because I was going to look at properties, but no, it's fine. You can put something else on the screen. But I think a lot of the answers that you want are really there, but they're not hidden in science, they're hidden in trade.
Yeah, I haven't even gone deep into it, because I feel like, well, first of all, if I'm right about any of the stuff that I've shown about the Heartstones or the mountain, then major parts of geology need to be rewritten anyway. So why would I spend a whole bunch of time trying to learn what they're telling us the rocks are when they're completely wrong about them? or at least
They are.
most of them, or some of
Mhm.
them. At the very least, I've identified a pattern in the smaller stones that was not in the scientific record, and the people that own the lab that I sent the rocks to, they took to calling them heart-shaped stones. Um, did you see that, Cami? But the paradigm crushed video that I did, it was 3 hours long. I would be
I may not have seen
surprised
all
if
of.
you saw it. um,
I put
yeah,
on your
the
videos a lot when I'm doing chores and stuff in the background, and like as I'm putting away laundry and walking in and out, I am guilty of that. So I catch on a lot of it with the heart-shaped rocks. I've caught with that, and I'm thinking the hearts
hmm.
from different animals. I know that in Colorado we found a lot of fossils that also had a lot of the qualities. The rocks around here are a little bit more ragged, and I wanted to talk to you too about what they do tell us in geology is that your rounded rocks are always just rounded because of their alluvial sources, water going over it. And I don't agree with this now over the long term.
Me
I think that your
neither.
bones and the things, yeah,
It
again,
makes
there are a
no
lot of.
sense
Mhm,
whatsoever when you look at the rocks. Like if you look at the mountain, Mont Go, um,
mhm.
the as you come down from the head, there are all these terraces, and that's true of every mountain in this region. And I've only explored the Costa Blanca, which is this region of Spain, because COVID and everything. I've been working and family, and so I don't know what it looks like in the rest of Spain or the rest of the world. But I can speak with some authority about what it looks like around here, because I have hiked the crap out of all of these mountains for the last 10 years, and they're made of this limestone that's filled with these Swiss cheese-like holes, has iron ore and a bunch of crystal, which I equate to bone, the blood, which is petrified and has become both red earth and accumulated into clumps where there was lots of hemoglobin, and that's your iron ore. And then all of the different fatty materials in the bodies, whether it's fascia, ligament, tendon, nerve, disc, and the blood plasma itself, all of those petrify into different kinds of quartz, from what I can tell by just looking at what's there.
And if you watch the movie that I sent you on the crystals and watching them, how they grow out of the elements, you'll see how this could happen and make sense, even in
But how would
replacement.
growth be involved in a petrification process? That doesn't
Because
make
of
sense
like
to me.
your little crystals growing on the inside. In other words, as think of it as it's decaying, it's turning into elements, probably getting washed over with water, and now the elements, little crystals are growing and replacing that in. And where the elements are is where the
Someone
body is. So if you go outside of the body, you don't have the elements present that you would need to
is this what
grow
is
that
known
stone.
as is this what is known
It'd
as
be like
nucleo
transmutation. I
is
mean, it's
this
really.
is this what's known as nucleophilic substitution?
I don't know.
Somebody typed that in the chat last night when I was doing a live stream. I think Roger's been talking about that, but I haven't watched him
No,
for the
I'm
last
talking.
couple of years.
I don't know what that is. I know that what I'm talking about is like in
Because
reality.
yeah, I mean, as far as biological transmutation is just a fact. Like my favorite example of that is the eggshell. That the creature, the chicken, in the course of the day is eating, and then every day they produce an egg, and the shell of the egg has more calcium than is in the diet of the chicken. So
Mhm.
that's just proof that the chicken is actually manufacturing calcium, which goes against
Right.
what we
What?
know
I
about the
never even
periodic.
thought of such a thing. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've done
Yeah.
tests also with
Oh,
plants, where they put it in. They took a big plant and put it in a pot, and they measured everything from the starting of all of the materials in the earth, and then and they weighed it all, and the only thing the plant got was light and sunlight. I'm sorry, light and water, and over the course of time, it takes on mass. So clearly it's growing, and things are being, yeah, look at that, that's amazing, like little Metatron cubes.
There are all kinds of stories. All you have to do is
Epic.
type into your search engine.
Cammy sent me the link to this.
Yeah, human body petrifies in graveyard, and you'll find all of these graves that have been, exhumed to be moved to another area.
Human body.
Yeah, there's all kinds of them. Just in Don McLean even wrote a song about this.
So this is interesting because the first thing that comes up is a bunch of the pictures from the casts that they poured at Pompeii. But I'll look into that more. A lot of people come at me, like I said before, as he's a mud fossil university copycat and he's trying to steal Roger's work and he's been talking about this for decades.
Not at all.
There are two things. The two main parts of my discoveries are not at all related to. I mean, he was definitely an inspiration for the original ideas and how the dots were connected, but he didn't talk at all about petrified organs whatsoever. He was always talking body parts. Here's a fingertip. Here's a head. Here's a no toe. He's got all these things that he's talking about in every video. But I never once saw a video, and there was a period of time where I watched a lot of his stuff, where he was talking about these petrified organs that I was finding. Yeah, none of those last few. Maybe that one, but those other ones.
Those are probably pareidolia, but reasons for you to start
because you've got that clear layering, and people have said the same thing about Montgo, that there was one guy who was a geologist who called me an idiot and said for basically two reasons. One was that it was exhibiting this sedimentary layering, but it's not, when you get closer to it, it's not like one layer and another layer stacked on top. If anything, if there was a great flood, as the flood waters receded, they could totally create lines on the sides of surfaces as they're going down.
Yep.
Right. Because it's not going to be clear water. It's going to be water filled with a bunch of muck, and then it's going to slowly go lower and lower and lower. So that's one possible explanation.
All he needs to do is go to Mount St. Helens when it went off, and the geologists were like, holy cow, we just saw over 300,000 years right here change in one
with the micro
day.
layering.
Right.
I have that clip in my Petrified Titans and Organs video, one or two. I don't remember which one. Yeah, that was a huge thing. So right off the bat, that what they're telling us about layers of strata is potentially completely false, because here we have an example of 3 or 4 hours of, flow and slurries, and it created this micro layering that they would normally see over long periods of time, and it happened in the course of a day. So, and then also there's circular reasoning when it comes to layers of strata, where they're talking about the fossils that are in particular layers. And because they're in this layer, they're a particular age. And then later on, when they're talking about that layer of strata, they're talking about the reason that layer of strata is that old is because of the fossils that were in it. So they're just kind of looping back around on themselves. It's kind of like with gravity, like which version of gravity are they going to use for this argument?
This I wrote up on the screen, among other things. We hear people talk about Saint Germain in the new version of it, but let's go back to Saint Germain and the Catholic, birth 1579, death 1601, patron of victims of child abuse. What this story was about is this girl that was born, her parents died or whatever. She became more ill or whatever. She wound up with people that didn't want her, aunts and uncles or whatever, that didn't want her. She found no sympathy, no love with her siblings. Watching their mother's treatment of their half-sister, they learned how to despise and torment her, putting ashes on her food, pitching her clothes. Their mother found this very entertaining when everybody would make fun of her. The abuse of Germain tears out her hearts and causes the cry for pity and justice, right? Talks about her, so she made Germain sleep out in the barn. The only work Germain had on frozen winter nights was the woolly sheep that slept there too. The only food she had were scraps Hortense might remember to throw away. This is a saint. This is somebody that died, but when they dug up her, and she wasn't very pretty. She was handicapped. She was hated. Her scraps of food were given to beggars, no matter how little she had. But and she was very quiet and sweet through it all, right? And she dies. But when she dies, they exhume her body for some reason. When her body was exhumed 40 years later, it was found to be undecayed, known as incorruptible, like the incorruptible bodies of saints. I don't know if people know this, but in the Catholic Church, one of the things on sainthood is called beatification, or turning to stone, or becoming more beautiful. Your body is more beautiful in death than it is in life. And so they're saying, like, for instance, she did not, and she's now Saint Germain now.
You're all familiar with the works of Girolamo Sagato?
No.
No.
I originally heard of him from J Dreamers, I think, in that Petrified Titans and Organs video. He was a guy in, I think it's about 100 years ago or maybe more. And if you search for it, Girolamo Sagato, Segato, Segato. He had the secret to petrifying flesh of all kinds, and
is that the one that did the little girl? What's the last name on it?
He's done everything. Everything there was to do, he did. Girolamo Sagato. Girolamo with an L. Lama.
Huh?
Yep. And then Segato. That's Savonarola. Segato.
Gato?
Segato. Yes. That one. There it is. Yeah. So do an image search for that. So his secret died with him, but if you scroll down,
did he have that little girl? Is he the
I
one
don't
that
know
had
about a little girl, but I found
there was a little girl in one
websites with tons of. He did all kinds of individual body parts. He did kidneys and lungs and livers, and so. And then there was this artist guy. I can't remember what his name was, but he was really gruesome. He kind of reminded me of Freddy Krueger. And he was doing these art exhibitions around the world where he was basically doing autopsies on real cadavers. And he had some kind of injection stuff that would make the red of the flesh was super bright red. And he was embalming and preserving these bodies in a way that basically like a human body without the skin, right? All the skin is removed, so you can see every muscle. And so he did these really gruesome art exhibitions around the world. So this was stone. I've never heard of this.
There's another little girl that's like, they have some of the petrified. This is Rosalie. There's another one that's a little girl that's like her eyes are open and they're.
Wow. See, this is more evidence that I was never exposed to. I didn't know about this little girl.
Also, if you go into what gets you thinking too, is like the ritual of trying to mummification is nothing more than trying to get your body to turn into stone. I think they were cheating to.
They were trying to, at least.
I mean, right? They were trying to. To me, it almost seems like a cheat into immortality by forcing. In other words, it's like forcing something that.
It was the metaverse of the day. They're like, no, you're gonna be like a god in the next realm, and they convinced that people were lining up. I can't wait to get turned to stone,
Yeah, this is beatification, or this is like, again, people that die and get more beautiful, and they call it sainthood or whatever. But you take that back to the mummies and looking for that. It almost looks like mummification is trying to, like, cheat to bring the.
It sounds like they just didn't know how to do it all the way. So there, a bunch of the channels, I think John Levine's gone into it, and others that have gone into these statues, which ultimately I believe they're either geopolymers, where they have the ability to make marble, they have the ability, all this supposed native stone, they could make that as geopolymers, just like we make concrete of different kinds. And there was a great pair of videos by observation deck where he goes through the old evidence and looking at the old books, and they're talking all about it. And he even found articles where they're talking about literally giving you the recipes for these different geopolymers to make your own granite, to make your own marble or whatever. So I think some of these statues, like everyone's seen this famous one with the fisherman's net draped over this extremely lifelike sculpture, and you look at the different parts of the net, and you can see like the spiral of the rope, and there's absolutely no way this could be done with a hammer and a chisel. I reject the notion. And so
Correct.
to me, either they had some kind of a technology that was like a zap them and they turned to stone kind of thing, or it was geopolymer. They probably carved it out of maybe I don't know, gypsum or wax or something like that, and then they made a mold, and then they poured it in, and then just kind of sand off the edges around where the mold is or something like that. That might be, but I'm pretty sure there's petrification technology based on on my research.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it may be as simple as the glittering sword of God, if there's any truth to the biblical narrative. But
I
tough to
know.
know.
I know. It's what, 2:00 in the morning now.
Yeah, Mike.
You're doing so good.
I'll keep going.
Tough.
Come on, let's go. Wait, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. All right?
His win. Yeah, we could throw a song on.
Let's throw a
grab
song
some
on and make some
and-
coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. Josh?
I'm going to stop sharing.
I don't know if Josh is there because I can't see him.
Oh, yeah.
I see him.
There he
you
is.
best believe
Hi.
I'm here. Fuck yeah, I'm here.
Hi. Well, sometimes you slip away
do.
to get coffee when
And
we're
I
not
have.
watching.
Yeah, no, I did slip away a couple times.
I haven't yet. I've been mobile though. I could have gotten some more if I needed it. I've been wrapped up in this amazing, brain-breaking night.
So how did I do on my first guest? On my first official one? How did I do?
You did all right, lady. You did all right. Zach, give Kimmy an extra big hug for me later.
And a little extra coffee in her cup. I'm going to go
And
get some coffee.
I am too. When we get the song going, I am too.
Drew Plotness in chat is looking for some followers over on Odyssey. So if you are listening on Odyssey, or if you have an account on Odyssey, cruise on over there. Give old Drew a sub.
Nice. What's up, Drew? I have an account over there. I'll come follow you in a few, brother.
We need to shout out Liz again too, because she was so happy to be shouted out this morning that we're going to chat tonight.
Crazy. I've never been on Odyssey. I've heard some of my videos have done really well, people sharing them over there, but I've never even gone and looked. I'm lazy, I guess.
You can only send energy to so many directions, man. You really can only do so much with your energy.
Our boy Ian says
he doesn't spend with it.
Sorry, Walter.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Ian says he doesn't spend any time over on Odyssey. Not even sure if he still has an account there. I was watching the compilation video from the Uvalde shooting and all the parents and law enforcement and stuff and everybody coming. And it was over on BitChute, over at DITRH. I'm like, shit, do I still have a BitChute account?
I was wondering that very thing when I was watching Dave's amazing video he shared with us. Thank you for reminding me. I wanted to mention it as well. Yeah, I wondered if I had one as well. I'll have to go back and check.
Oh, that was a pretty good video though. That's
crazy. Did you catch the one off to the side, the McConaughey, real quick one?
No.
Dude, oh, it's epic. It is so epic. It's like you shit bag. I want to just.
Wasn't he shilling for something? What was it he was pushing?
He's not. It's the latest planned event, and he's up there talking about some child, and her name is apparently the name for truth in another language. And as he says her name, he fucking smirks on news cameras in the podium area. I mean, it's amazing. It's so fucking blatant. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? But yeah, we could definitely all use a bathroom break real quickly there.
That's right. That's
I started a trend.
Well, no, it's needed. We usually take them. You've had us so wrapped up with this amazing stuff. It's been great. So yeah. And as soon as you need to go to bed, dude, please take your leave and just you have to promise to come back. That's all. And definitely one of those Tuesday or Friday mornings might work better for you as well.
I had a nap, so I'm doing all right. Actually, I'm more awake now than when we started, so that's a good sign.
Right?
That's
awesome.
That's how we do. Yeah, when we designed our morning show, Walter and I actually start at 4. So we've been doing shows at 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. twice a week for almost 5 years now.
You have night jobs, or why do you pick this hour?
Insanity, mostly. It works best for Josh's schedule. Mine's a little bit more open than his.
What do you guys do for a living?
Well,
that's something you ask. I'm a chiropractor. I don't know about you guys.
Right.
So I work for a military contractor, and we build fire control units for the military.
Fire control, as in like sprinkler systems?
As in sighting units, essentially. Specifically, what I've been working on most recently are mounts for tanks, so that when the EMP goes out and they have to still control the sighting and the shooting of the guns on the tank, they can still manage to move and adjust and look out through the scopes and adjust their shots accordingly. So I'm on their.
Doesn't sound very important to me.
No, it's not at all. And it's really a very interesting company because not only do we do that, but we do microscope work, and we do what's the big place at the Science Center where all the stars are? Stellarium. We build a lot of the big major software and hardware for all the stellariums, the big major stellariums across the plane. So, yeah.
Right.
Making sure the military can fire their weapons
on
the plane.
How did I miss that? Oops, I'm sorry. I did not realize you guys did the planetarium stuff. How did I miss that?
That's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
Well, same shit, different day, but yeah. Holy crap.
Yep.
Give me some tickets. No, I'm kidding, but that's crazy. I had no idea y'all had that. Well, y'all get in touch with the Lafayette one. The planetarium here is sad, man. Their stars are so dim. They keep telling me every time I go to one and ask them, hey, you guys ever like thought about investing in some new bulbs? We're going to do that. We're going to upgrade one day. They just haven't.
I'll put the word out there.
So what do you guys what do you guys think about like the star forts are actually mirroring the stars up above? And
I've never seen any correlation. So I really can't.
I haven't seen any evidence for it. I just heard.
I would have to see the evidence, right? I've heard it as an offhand comment about like what you just said, and that's it. That's all I've heard. So has someone done the layout?
Thinking about that, when someone needs to plot out all the star forts on the AE projection and see what it looks like if we can match them to any stars.
Oh, that's a very interesting idea. I mean, I know the guy who's got the best Starfort KMZ in the world. So if there was a way to take all of his locations and then you make it into a pizza or something, and what pattern does that make? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and how does it fit into like probably places like, you know?
Yeah, like didn't the ley lines made a whole lot more sense, and the storm or the high winds, the jet streams, all that makes more sense on the AE projection, right? So
yeah, it looks so ridiculous on the globe. I would ask my mom, why do the winds go down and up and down and up and down? And then you put it on the AE projection and it's just a perfect circle.
Yeah, a ring going this way, a ring going that way. And
yeah.
So then they just pick their altitudes and they can go where they want with things.
Yeah, it's so much simpler than they make it out to be. That's part of the illusion,
Yeah,
I
it's
remember
really simple to do it this way, but we're going to make up this fantastic story and say we're doing it this way. So none of you would even try to do anything like this. It's so out of the realms of possibility for even us to do, but we claim we're doing it. I'm still waiting for the first FE satellite. Someone take a balloon and,
well, I was
get it
just
up.
thinking of satellites when you said that. I was thinking of, that they're made of this conductive, silky-like material. And it was Globebusters that introduced me to this whole idea of electrostatic tethering. I remembered that supposed experiment that NASA did where they, let this thing out into space and then it started to glow bright. And I was so excited by that whole concept. But I didn't understand, the physics of it. And to learn about, spiders ballooning, and they don't just float and, go with the wind. They can actually like regulate their altitude, and they can
use up to 12
decide where they want to go.
It's not just one strand out. They make like a balloon with their web almost. They'll put up to 12 strands out and then release some of them to come down and this. And they control it all by the amount of strands, how long they are. They're really getting into the in-depth of studying this. Yeah, it's really neat. It's amazing.
And then that all ties into Antiquitech as well. It's like harvesting energy from the ether.
Well, it's right there.
The building structures.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tesla supposedly could comprehend how to do it. We're on a Hertzian system. Everything cycles per second. Well, Tesla's tech did not work like that. He was using volts per second. And he figured out a way to send electricity wirelessly, like we're talking right now, but sending massive amounts of electricity to certain areas, wirelessly through the air, to where all you had to do was have a little receiver on your device. You hit the switch, your device just turns on. There's no wire connected to it, to a wire connected in your wall that's connected to another wire that's, all this wasted metal and alloys that we have and these wires all over. We don't need any of this stuff. According to Tesla, I don't comprehend it. It's a huge ocean just looking at it, trying to comprehend this stuff. I'm pretty good with the stuff outside the wires, but getting in the wires, that's a different ball game.
But if we didn't really need it, think about what mining things that would be called veins and things, getting in the earth, what kind of destruction it could go if we're doing it really for no reason and we don't need any of this shit. I'm sorry, it's just a random thought out there. What, because again, it takes back to my number one, why are they hiding, like random thought that, well, if there truly was evil, what would they get us to do? They would get us to like completely rape and pillage the land and the earth that we live on, that gives us everything.
Yeah, once you get it out of the ground, you have to have some reason for doing it. You have to give us a reason to do it. So we'll just waste it and lay it all. Well, they know where it is. They know where all the wires are. They can go pull it up anytime they want. It's right at the surface,
Wires to what? Sorry, I lost the
well, yeah, she's saying, if we don't need to use this, why would they do it? It's because they want us to destroy this place.
That's my thought is like, it's not bad enough to get us all greedy and lie about us on everything, but if they can get us to destroy everything given to us in the name of greed, in the name of hatred, in the name,
and then finish off by killing or eating each other.
Well, yeah, they're already saying we have to get rid of people because of CO2. Why has it not dawned on any of these people to let's plant some more plants? I mean, seriously.
If they wanted to fix environmental problems, if there even are, then they would be able to do it so quickly if that was what the effort. I mean, I saw a few years back there was a big military plane that the kind that could probably fly tanks around, that they had these biodegradable darts that had seeds in them, and they would fall and then they would hit and penetrate the ground, and then they would biodegrade and a tree would grow, And so deforestation, all that, this one plane could drop like 1 million seeds in one day. You know, 1 million trees planted in one day by one plane. Well, if you had 1,000 of those planes,
you could just go and plant the whole earth that we know.
it'd be a garden pretty quick, and you know,
in a week you could have all your seeds planted.
I mean, I've seen stuff where people, you know, I don't know where they get their water source, but creating oases out in the desert, and then they start more and more plants growing, and then it's just after like 20 or 30 years, there's the whole ecosystem there because of what they did. That's all we need to do.
Do you guys still want to take 5? Or are we like past that? I'm just asking.
I don't need to now. I made my coffee.
I'm good.
All right then.
I took my 5 minutes.
It's really
on
on Mike. Mike was the guy who needed a break for a minute, so it's up to you, gentlemen, sir.
I thought we were already going again.
We were.
We are going.
We were, but I mean, I don't want you to.
Well, we never actually stopped, technically.
We never stopped, really. So, yeah.
That's why the question.
I definitely tried to get it to a break, and we finally got off the topic of it because of the excitement of our conversation. It happens a lot here, so don't feel like it's anything unusual. But certainly, if anyone needs a break, speak now.
I'm no stranger to this kind of flow.
I'm sitting here with the abundance and the cool things I'm looking at. Mike, have you ever heard of the double tree of Casero?
Nope.
No.
I don't know that one either.
We're going to share it with you while we're just doing this because this is so cool. We've been doing
On that topic, did you hear they think they found the oldest tree again? A new one in Chile. They say it's 9,000 years old.
Ooh. What's so cool?
How do they test that? Is there any?
They just cut it down and count the rings, don't you know?
Right. That's the best way to see how old it is.
That's the only way to know, right?
It reminds me of an old Far Side cartoon by, you know, see right here, little Johnny, you can see where the big fella survived another fire miraculously.
Is that Bill Larson? Jim Larson? Something like that?
Yeah, I think it was Gary.
Gary Larson.
Gary Larson. Oh, yeah.
He was a Seattle guy.
He was amazing.
Amazing. So much of my
a
sense
true
of humor.
Scientist.
I almost got in trouble in school for wearing one of his shirts. It had a cow chained up to a wall and a guy standing there with a whip and a mask on, and it says the horrible truth behind whipped cream.
Between
you would have gotten double trouble because I don't believe Gary ever marketed any of those things as legit product.
He'd get eaten alive in today's politically correct wokeism culture.
Yeah, he would have been canceled as soon as that started.
Double standards here, just so you know what I got in trouble with at that age was wearing Jimi Hendrix Are You Experienced? And that was like enough for my dad to like completely get that off.
Oh yeah, this wasn't my mom. My mom thought it was funny. This was a teacher who didn't like it. Mrs. Hernandez or Fernandez.
Something.
Yeah, science and math. She didn't teach me a thing. I just sat and talked in her class with this one hot chick the whole time.
Oh, the Are You Experienced? My dad didn't think was funny at all. He didn't think it was about guitar, and he didn't want it plastered across my chest. But that's just taking me back to teenage years. That tree I was showing is not a.
You're talking about the acid
the one on the screen. Well,
that was the whole Are You Experienced thing, right?
Yeah.
Those were psyops of a high order.
Yes, they were.
To me, it was just a cool pink or a cool Jimi Hendrix, shirt to wear because I was a teenager, and
Have you ever done the Jimi Hendrix?
I was thinking of Timothy Leary and the Warlocks in Haight-Ashbury dosing people who had never done anything with way too much in the most cacophonic, loony environment, possible.
Right. Yeah, one of the leaders of the movement Kesey, was it Ken Kesey? Yeah, he's
the
in the
merry
psycho ward,
pranksters.
loose, right? The prankster himself, loose in the psycho ward. That makes perfect sense.
Well, there's the whole thing with the bus, the magic bus that.
I loved it. I read those
made.
books, loved them.
Yeah,
They
but
influenced me hugely,
that was also a myth.
unfortunately.
I mean, there were actually a bunch of buses. This is something that was revealed.
Right.
Yeah, that was like most people don't know that like 90% of that molecule was coming out of the letter agency. You know,
definitely was.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How else do you get published? You just every drug addict just gets published.
Well, Timothy Leary was, he was on the payroll of the CIA. He was helping do intake forms, I think, for them, and then
definitely,
and then also he, the whole tune in, turn on, drop out, and he was supposedly fired from Harvard, but that just gave a whole legitimacy to the whole thing, to the counterculture, and made all the youth want it that much more, and it was readily available.
They're smart.
I've started at the beginning. I was talking about going through a rude awakening before meeting Alex and having kind of the rug pulled out from under me, and how all of that ties into Silicon Valley, the whole New Age movement, Esalen, basically every aspect of my childhood and upbringing was mixed into this in one way or another. And then you start to see how that ties back into, things like, Crowley and have you guys seen that 2-minute video of Leary when he's sitting? He looks like a Sith Lord, and he's talking about how Crowley was his great mentor, and he was considered himself to be continuing the great works of Crowley. And behind him is a picture of Christ with reptilian eyes, horns, and the 666 between the horns.
Wow.
That's still, you can find that still. Like, what? That's not. Wait a minute.
I just can't stand to listen to the guy talk, so I tried not to.
Oh yeah, it's horrible to listen to. I got really deep into the whole psychedelic thing because I kind of went through a renaissance about 10 years ago with it, and was reading tons of books and listening to hundreds and hundreds of hours of podcasts, and I knew all the major players and was up on the research, and had studied the molecules and experimented with them myself in different ways. But looking back on it retroactively and finding out that a lot of the key players that were, disseminating knowledge, going all the way back to the introduction of the whole thing to the American people, with Gordon Wasson and Maria Sabina and the mushrooms and all of that. He was propagandist for J.P. Morgan. Amateur mycologist discovers the magic mushroom, brings him back to the U.S. Life magazine, front page, looks like a cartoon. Interesting work. Jan Irvin is somebody I reference a lot when it comes to all that stuff, because it's very. I think it's important. A lot of people are wrapped up in a whole lot of different things that might be darker than they realize.
Yes, they might, unfortunately.
Big fan of Jan. Jan's got some really good information out there.
So did you ever get summoned by any type of, I don't like the term secret society, but like a fraternal order?
Well, the first thing I thought of when you said summoned was by some kind of authorities, since we were talking about those. And apart from, I thought Cammy was going to
play exactly where my mind went to, Mike. I thought that too. Like, well, they did not once. No, go ahead.
Are you ready for jury duty? Are you registered with the selective
jury
service?
duty?
You've been summoned. Yeah.
No, but no. The thing is, I thought Cammy might have had it queued up there in the beginning when she was talking about the hacking, because I have a 4-5 minute promo video for the book that I've written that isn't published yet, but I'm in the final stages with. I need a final edit and proofreading, and then formatting in different formats for to be able to publish the thing. But so I created a video, and in that video, there's actually footage of me in an interview when I was 18. That it's footage that resurfaced when I contacted the prosecuting attorney to do some fact checking for the book that I've written. about 6 years ago. It was the first time we'd communicated in 30 years or more. And he happened to have this old footage, and it was basically a part of my thing was, yeah, you just,
Yeah, I've
it
got
speaks,
somewhere.
it speaks for itself. Make sure the sound's on.
Will do. Like I said, I had some stuff pulled up. I've been digging around a little bit whilst I could in between shows and a full-time job and a wife and a kid.
So there's going to be about 10 images that just flash by right at the very beginning here. I think this is the first one. That's a magazine that used to be sold, and they used to have meetings, get together and share information. It was all kinds of little hacking tricks and hacking the phone system and gaming the system in different ways. And there was another called Tap and another called Frack. And Frack was a combination of freak and hack in one word, but spelled with a PH like phone. And yeah, these are just kind of the lore of the whole earliest days of the hacking thing. And when people find out that I got busted and I went to jail, they have this image of a kid, who got into trouble, but I was actually, involved with a bunch of people and traveling all over the place to these different conventions. I went to New York when I was 16. I went to New Jersey. I was in Philadelphia one time, and I was just this California kid that was into hacking and met these guys and online. And so it's, like the earliest days of doing what we're all doing now, right? Meeting people online and sharing ideas and talking about subversive stuff and things you're not supposed to know about or talk about, or people would think you were crazy. And yeah, so that was really the first wave of that ever. And so I got caught, and then a lot of the guys that I was hanging with, there was a big sting about 5 years later, and like 27 of them got taken down in one day in something called Operation Sun Devil. And already like the year after me, the national law was passed, and now it was felony offenses, and now the fines were, and Kevin Mitnick, the most famous hacker in the world, he went to jail 10 years after I went to jail. And but he was around when I was around. We were contemporaries, but I didn't know him. He was in LA, and I was about 90 miles up the coast. And so when he went to jail, they convinced the judge that he was so dangerous that he could just whistle into a payphone and start World War III. And the judge apparently believed this. And so what are they going to do? Because like all the inmates have to be able to like, make their phone calls on the prison payphones or receive calls or whatever. But they couldn't have Kevin Mitnick in there with all the regular prisoners and moving around. So what do? They threw him in solitary confinement for 9 months. He was in solitary confinement. He did a total of 5 years in prison. Yeah. It's awful, totally awful what they did to him. I don't care what he was doing, but he was doing it. He had them wrapped around his finger every which way. That guy was an amazing hacker, and I read his autobiography and I've seen documentaries, and he knew a ton of stuff, and they didn't know how to. He was the most wanted man in the U.S. for quite a while. The prosecuting attorney on my case was literally 1 hour away from catching him. They had a sting operation on an apartment that he had rented in the University District in Seattle. And they were investigating some things that had to do with cell phone cloning. He was one of the first to be doing that. And they did this sting operation, and they came in and nobody was there. And he had literally stepped out for coffee, and he walked back, and he saw everyone going into the thing, and he just kept walking. They didn't catch him again for like another 2 years, but Kevin Mitnick wrote about him in the Ivan Orton was this prosecuting attorney. Anyway, I'm babbling on, but I got a lot of funny stories. But
no, this is
by
great,
the way,
great stuff, Mike. Great stuff.
He was aware of it, and I've closed some tabs, so it's back up again. But I most certainly do have that little hacker print. Is that the one you're talking about? The hacker prints, that little 8-minute.
It should be like 4 or 5. Hold on 1 second. So I did that for a Kickstarter campaign, and there's some sections in there where I'm talking about the campaign. and stuff like that. It's still, those are pretty good. But this is really the only time I've ever talked about all of this. I've only done one interview that's ever been published, and that was with Andreas Exertus. I just thought he was the perfect guy for it, since he spans the whole spectrum. He's such a techie, and he loves all this old lore, and when it comes to, so he knows more about the old days of hacking probably than I do. So he was a good person to do it with. So this is like 36 years later, and I'm just now finally getting around coming out with this information. And
Right.
and I'm on Wikipedia,
Right.
but nobody's ever discovered. There's nobody's ever called me, hey, could you do an interview, or it's like I'm there. I'm like the only one that doesn't have a link. You've got Julian Assange is on there. You've got I'm like at the top of the list, and nobody's even noticed me. It's hilarious.
Check out my merch store.
But here's the thing. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One is I had a deferred sentence. So after 2 years of probation and my jail time and the fines and everything, it was wiped from my record. But the other thing was that everything was starting to go digital there, because everything was command line, and there was no internet. The internet was there, but there was no web browsing. It was all, you had to type in the addresses. If you want to go get a file in some other computer on some network, you had to know how to navigate it with words, and slashes and numbers, and so it's really it's come a long way. But the thing
I need to get you and my brother on a call together. That was his era of the early days when he was doing all that. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, I was just going to say that the newspapers archivals were all microfiche. You guys have all used those.
Oh yeah.
You're trying moving it with
smell of a microfiche machine when it gets hot.
Yeah. So all of the newspaper articles that you're going to see flashing in this video, they were all, I'm sure, on microfiche, but that's not searchable. And maybe now it is. They probably digitize all of that, but all of it is behind paywalls. So it doesn't show up on Google searches. So if you've read the book, which nobody has yet, or the story, for everything in the book, it's called The Hacker Prince: A True Story, because I didn't have to embellish at all. The story is so out there, crazy.
I can't
that
a lot of people in chat are saying it sounds like a movie.
Yeah, I can't wait. Everybody's ever heard even traces of it has said the same thing. So at some point, maybe it could be a movie. And if someone gets on it soon enough, my son looks exactly like me, so maybe he could.
Oh, what? There you go.
He could play. He's like spitting. He's 18 right now. He's a spitting image of me at that age.
Open up with Alex Michael music video, right? Cut to you making videos, present tense, and then cut to the past tense. Cut to young Mike, where your son plays young Mike out there trying to figure out modems and phone lines and figure out what hooks up to what.
Yeah. And the footage, there's a bit of footage in here, the footage that's in green, because the prosecuting attorney, after we basically became friends, he had late stages Parkinson's, and he's since passed away. So we couldn't talk on the phone, which was really a bummer for me because his voice box wasn't functioning. So we had these long emails, and some of that content makes it into the book. And he was one of the first people to read the first version, which was like 6 years ago. I finished the first version, and then along came FE and my research, and that book got put on hold. And so now I'm like, I realize that there are all these other books that I want to start on and things I want to do that are being held up because I'm like, well, I can't create more stuff that I still haven't, published. So anyway, so the truth is stranger than fiction sometimes.
So on that, Mike, I don't know if you know, I know you were at my house in November of 2018.
Cut to Globebuster Central.
Right?
Cut to Globebuster Central. And
round, get around, I get around.
So you're at Glowbuster's house and you met my son. You met my son and you were just talking to him before you got on here. But I don't know what you know about my son. Do you know very much about my son?
I think doesn't he do pen testing or something? Isn't that like a forte of his that he's actually a hired gun at for
I'm going
somebody
to bring up a screen because you know that you were the sprinter, right? I'm going to, because I got wind of what he was doing, not in the newspapers because I wasn't looking for him in the newspapers, so I should have been looking there. I got wonder of what he was doing by share a screen, by a FedEx package that arrived from lawyers. In December, a couple inches of official documents, and the official documents were of like Forbes magazine and Fortnite board and PC games and magazines. Why?
Is like he's like the newest incarnation. This is why I got into hacking in the first place, because I was like obsessed with the video games. I was spending all the money I had on them, and I was pretty industrious. I was working a lot. I was washing windows, and I was doing gardening, and I had a paper route at one point, but it was never enough because those games just like gobbled them up, And so then I ended up becoming a kleptomaniac because of video games. And that led me into having questionable morality. So hacking wasn't, much of a stretch for me at that point. And then I learned that computers could talk to each other through the phone line. And I knew the computers were what were creating the video games. So I thought, if I get into that, I'll probably be able to like get the games I want, or at least start to be able to making it.
So Jared, I knew that he kind of liked the games, but he wasn't gaming all of the time like other children were or whatever. He wasn't always on the game. He was always into like how the game works. And that's always like when he was a little boy, it was Little Big Planet, and it was being creating and creating the rooms and that. So it was more of a creator type of looking at, or an outside how it works, than interest of actually playing the game. And this, if I had been watching the newspapers for my son's name in October.
This, by the way, is the original meaning of the word hacker before, after war games, and when the media started to demonize hackers all over the world, and really, create a whole lot of fear porn to get into the minds of people. Like, these are the big, it's like they never talk about the white collar hackers. They never talk about the people at the top that commissioned the systems that can manipulate them, right? So yeah.
What my son did was he went into Fortnite, which I'm sure you've heard of, and there was hints about a gifting system, but it wasn't out in the news yet. But it got put out in the news because my son enabled the gifting system in which you could buy store items for your friends and send them directly. Such a new system is coming to Fortnite possibly very soon, and now we have the ability to see it in action thanks to Leaker, the one Jaren, who got gifting working, well, almost working in the game early. His store items will now have a button under each.
That kid needs to go to jail.
Store items will now have a button under each of them that will allow you to purchase that item as a gift, and then you select who you want to send it to, and you add a personalized message when you receive it. Supposedly, there's also some sort of return system where the gifts can be returned through a refund. I'm not sure if that means cash.
There was a guy, I think his name is Sammy Kankar, SAMY, and he did some kind of a thing where he I can't remember what it was, but basically it was like a worm or something. It just took on a life of its own. Never mind.
That's what Jared did was,
yeah.
No, it went in with it. The one more detail in the video is when Jared is attempting to send gifts with not a live system, there's a display that says various people he's trying to be sending to will receive the gifts in 8 days. Given that this happened October 13th, that implies that perhaps this gifting system will go live on October 21st. Basically, he went into Epics and he found their gifting system, and he put it out to pre-order it so that when it went live, your gifts would already be in line. Now they did present it with all kinds of legal stuff, but there was no this is where they're going to get into the, not a crime. He didn't make any off of it. He didn't get anybody's information. He did no harm.
Right.
All he did was like, he enabled the system early to pre-order gifts that would take effect. You know, again, it would be one thing if the money was going to him, if it was diverting, if there was any gain out of it.
Yeah.
They were still heavy about getting into the system, and they scared the living daylights out of us.
But this isn't still in process. This is all
Right.
concluded now, and he's actually an asset to somebody because of
Well,
his
yeah, what
skills.
happened is because of the fact that there was no malicious and there was no and again, this is how I found out who was doing it. There was no malicious intent or anything. He's really, you know, a bright kid. He was excited about finding it. And that he is, I mean,
Well,
they
you could say the
currently
exact same thing about
in line for
me,
an intern. Now he's getting older. Right.
except
They criminalized you instead because they tried to make an example. Now I
well,
think, well, were you malicious? What damage?
I was there at the cutting edge, and they definitely had every intent of using me as the example. And they were trying initially to go with computer trespass in the first degree, which would have been a felony offense, and that's intrusion with intent to defraud. So I'm like in the system looking for something and want to steal information to make use of it or to damage it or something like that. They wouldn't have been able to prove that because that wasn't what I was doing. I was totally interested in the systems themselves, just
How
like
it worked.
Jaren
Just
was
like
with
Jaren,
Fortnite.
right.
Yeah. And
I
so
thank
I
God
was
that, yeah.
innocent in that respect. Ultimately I was found guilty of the second degree, which is gross misdemeanor. Now, the interesting thing about it, when this gets into justice and does the punishment fit the crime? And when it comes to hacking, they've created such a fear porn frenzy and demonized the hackers as the big threat in our lives, that they've blown the penalties completely out of proportion when it comes to hackers. And I was really the very beginning of that.
Yeah.
So the only reason they were, I mean, because they're hackers in China, they've executed hackers. There are other people who've been, sent away for like 200 years, or it's the further down that list where I'm at the top. The further down you go, the worse the penalties get, right? Because they've got this zero tolerance when it comes to hacking. But the reason they had leverage in my case was because not so much the phone fraud, because all the hackers, everybody was doing that. But I started to engage in a little bit of credit card fraud here and there because I rationalized it in my mind that hey, these credit card companies, they're the criminals. They're like charging 25% interest, and they're basically like institutionalized loan sharking. And I knew that there were insurance companies that were covering all of the fraud that was happening. So I had all these rationalizations. I knew that it wasn't an individual that was going to get screwed. They might have some hassle in their life, so that was part of how we were moving around, but not the people that were really good, and not later. But they had that information on me, so they had that as leverage. And it was mentioned briefly in some of the newspaper articles, but they really they kind of just painted me as this curious genius on a high-tech joyride, for the most part, in the media, and used this as an opportunity to focus on the hacking. So basically, when it came down to the plea bargaining, my lawyer had a little less leverage than he would have, because as a first-time offender, no intent to defraud, they would have had nothing. There's no reason I should have gone to jail. So in a sense, I got off pretty lightly, even though I was the first teen in the world to go to jail for the crime of hacking. Having said that, at the end, when the whole thing was over, there was this little piece, because I have all the articles that I saved from all of this, and there was an article where it said that it was basically just summarizing my case in a little blurb. And then it said, young teen hacker given 2 weeks in jail. And then there was another little article off to the right, And that article was even smaller, but when you look at it, it said killer of state man given 5 years probation. And this guy had gotten into a bar fight and stabbed somebody to death and got off with 5 years probation because it was, you know, emotions were involved, right? Well, yeah, he didn't even serve a day in jail for manslaughter. And these two articles were juxtaposed like that. And from that day forward, I lost all faith in the American justice system. I'm like, this is just so utterly ridiculous. Yes, and the fact of the matter is, if I were to go into your home and bludgeon you in the head with a bat and then steal your computer and take it with me, that would have been a gross misdemeanor. Unless they could, you know, prove that I was trying to kill you.
Here's a quick question, just because it's on my mind.
But if I go in through your phone line, into your computer without taking it or hurting you or breaking into your home, that's a felony now. So that's what I mean. It's like it's out of proportion. Sorry.
It's probably just a vulnerability thing. Because I think it's just sort of, they know in the back of their mind that there's not shit they can ultimately do to keep people out that are determined to get in.
Right.
And it scares the shit out of them.
Yeah, they're trying to deter people, clearly.
See, you think stabbing somebody to death, if you stab somebody in the belly, right, and they bleed out and it takes them like 2 days to die, did you stab them to death? Or does it take like the act of stabbing somebody until they are dead to be considered stabbing them to death?
You should have been a lawyer.
I've heard that way
You
too
really
much.
should have. He's great at all this. Yeah, Mike, you have no idea.
Well, now I've talked everybody's ear off. Go ahead, hit the play button on this thing. Oh, turn out. Wait, pause. Go back. You can't hear it.
Oh, it was playing. It was just low and rumbly. I'll turn it up.
Yeah, but you want to hear the sound.
Gotcha.
In February 1985, an 18-year-old Kirkland, Washington man pled guilty to 4 counts of computer trespass. The defendant was accused of gaining illegal access to 4 large Seattle area firms. Would you state your name, please?
My name is Mike Wilkerson.
Hi, my name is Mike Wilkerson. It's hard for me to believe, but it's been 36 years since that video clip that you just saw of me was recorded. I'm a former computer hacker, and I'm also the author and protagonist of this new book entitled The Hacker Prince, A True Story about digital mischief in the 80s. The writing and revision stages of the book are now completed, and I'm launching this Kickstarter campaign in the hopes that you will join in with other backers and assist me in bringing this most unique and exciting story to the world. That's the prosecuting attorney. That's my lawyer.
Usually they have the way it's set up is you dial in on one line and it calls you back on another so that you can't. It's supposed to be the ultimate security. But what you do is you break into Cosmos and you find out all of the phone numbers that company owns, and you call it until you find the 2 that are hooked up to data. And then you get the callback modem and you set up call forwarding on that line so it call forwards to your own number. That takes a lot of work, but
yeah, we didn't talk about that at all. That was, pause it for a second. So it wasn't just that I broke into these computers. It was also the companies that I infiltrated, which was Microsoft, Sunstrand, Kenworth Trucking, and then Resources Conservation Company, that last one there, that's a subsidiary of Boeing. So I had gotten into Microsoft and Boeing, and both of those systems I had full system privileges. So it wasn't just like I got in. I had full control over the servers, and they reported
That's
on that.
amazing.
You could have done some really.
I could have done some damage, yeah. And
you willful rummager, you.
Yes. And knowing what I know now, I can joke about like, oh, the things that I found deep inside the computer systems of Mr. Gates. Yeah, information about islands and.
So I've seen a couple other stories.
No, there was nothing like that, but yeah.
In my searching, I'd seen a couple other stories of this, the 414s.
Yeah.
And I noticed this was the only one that included more than one victim.
There was only one charged in the end. I think his buddies all like basically pled. I don't know. They got out of it. So Gerald Wondra was the only one who got any penalty there, and he just got probation for it. But that was the first case that really started the fear thing in the media, and then the media started to jump on it more and more. Exactly, because the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, they said that these guys could have messed with the dosages of the drugs for patients, and it could have resulted in death.
Well, let's be real. I was gonna say that's the only one that they really focused on in many of the other articles that I read. That it was this Sloan Kettering Cancer Center that they'd hacked into, and it was this other thing.
And a bank. It's always a bank.
And a
right?
bank.
You gotta have a bank in there.
There was this other one that I noticed that I found really interesting. The Los Alamos National Laboratory. I bet you there could have been all sorts of goodies in there.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, no, the thing that people don't realize is the whole internet is built on a backbone that was originally called ARPANET, and this is, as the story goes, they built it so that we could survive nuclear wars, and that there's a decentralization to the whole computer system. So as parts of the grid are taken out, it's still functioning. But ultimately what it is a linking between your government agencies, your letter agencies, the military, and your university, and so your think tanks and your research centers in the the universities that have contracts with the government and stuff like that. So that was ARPANET. So hackers were all over that, and you could use that to get into one computer and then jump into other computers. And so you can move around the system, and that's what we were all doing. So in varying degrees.
I'm pretty sure my uncle was working for Los Alamos at the time, back in '84. Pretty sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of military-industrial complex in the region that I was in, like Point Magoo is there. And then if you go up the coastline, you've got Vandenberg, you have JPL. Then the university's got government contracts. There's a whole lot of stuff going on with the quantum physics. I think they've got a big department for that there. So there's a ton of stuff that, would have been very interesting to look into. But by the time I got clever enough to get out into the wires, and I was on the East Coast going after information, like what flashes in the very beginning of this video.
So you're saying you never met Joshua?
No, and I never played Global Thermonuclear War either. Yeah, I think there's just a little bit more to it.
As you can see from the newspaper clippings, the journalists did their best to cover the events, but the most exciting parts of the story remained untold, until now. This is a story about my early life and how I got into hacking, but it's about so much more. It takes place in the early 80s, at a time when telecommunications and hacking were still in their infancy. I was going on all sorts of ill-advised adventures and meeting with some of the most famous and infamous hackers of the era.
Wonder how long it'll take before RV makes a video about me.
I have a question for you, because how old are you now?
I am 54.
You're 54, so again, you were a little bit younger.
Those are actual hackers.
When War Games came out, you watched War Games when it came out and was premiered and everything. Is that correct?
That's Turbo there, by the way.
No,
I was on a hacker trip to New York City, stayed in Brooklyn with a hacker called the Broadway Hacker, and ran into Turbo on the street.
That is so cool.
Where's Ozone?
It looks like Rick Ocasek in the background. I mean, what a classic picture. How about that?
That is awesome.
Special K right around the corner.
That is like perfect on the time of it too and everything. Just looking at the cars and the dress and the
him doing the dance scene with the broom is still one of my favorite breakdancing movie scenes ever.
He was the best in that movie.
Yeah,
I thought I was going to get to meet Matthew Broderick because the guy that I went to visit said, we're going to go to a Broadway show. I was like, he was the Broadway hacker, so it makes sense, right? So we went to see a show on Broadway, and it was a show called Brighton Beach Memoirs. It was a play, and Matthew Broderick had been starring in it, and so we were gonna go backstage and like talk to him, and hey, we're real hackers, that kind of thing. Because it was pretty cool. I mean, when that movie came out, I felt like, man, somebody's been filming my life.
Exactly. What I want to know, because I'm a little bit older than you, but of the same, it was like very timely. But when I watched that movie, and again, I'm the same age as Matthew Broderick, or that I watched it, and I thought Dr. Falcon was old. When they talked about, oh, well, he's dead. Oh, he's old. Do you remember Dr. Falcon in the movie that went? And do you remember like the discussions with it? And I remember at the time watching that and agreeing that this 40-something-year-old man was old. And now going back and watching it as an adult, it's like, wow, it was like the kids. I did think he was old. I wondered if you had a thought looking now at that movie as an adult, or if that even occurred to you then, or nah.
I haven't seen the movie in so long, but no, it didn't occur to me. I wasn't thinking about his age at all, as far as whether he looked age appropriate for what they were supposedly portraying him as.
Well, he kind of did, but they portrayed somebody in the 40s that when you were a teenager, you really, really saw him as an old person.
Mm.
And I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting take now looking at it and going back, that it caught me like different things of watching it when it came out, being at the same age as these people, and now looking back to it as a mother with kids the same age as the kids portrayed in it. So it's just a interesting slice. I'll let you go back to the interesting stuff.
I'm 16 in that picture. And I basically lied to my parents and told them that a guy that I knew through the computer was his father was a part owner of an airline, and so because of that he could get free flights, and he offered for me to come, and I must have had a pretty convincing story because they actually let me go, which was crazy. And that's a whole chapter in the book, that experience. That was crazy. Yep.
Tickets are Mike. It's the well, you go back to the movie, but how the tickets didn't come that way. Did they come like they did in
Yeah, we later started to get into you're talking about the airline tickets?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean they had special printers for them, and there were all these layers to the tickets, and we looked into that a lot. Do you get fake IDs to be able to travel? There's a whole thing about falsifying your who you are in order to be able to travel, because you're not going to travel on your own name, right? That would be dumb. And then actually producing your own tickets, but it was very, very difficult the more we looked into it The more
Yeah,
we
it's like
decided,
printing
just
money.
there were easier ways. Like it's like
Yeah.
you got to get embossing machines and all this stuff. I talk about that in the book as well.
Let's go back to maybe that's so fascinating.
Beverly Hills Cop premiered when I was
You
there.
haven't been cut. You have
Went
this,
to it.
you have this invulnerable feeling. You just don't think you're going to get caught. You ask any hacker out there that hasn't been caught yet if he thinks he's going to get caught, he'll tell you no. And if they tell you yes, it's because somebody close to them just recently got busted, and they have a feeling of being watched.
Whether you're curious about the 80s hacking scene and some of its most infamous characters, or if you care to indulge in a bit of nostalgia for the early days of computing, or if you just simply like to kick back with a light-hearted coming-of-age tale, then this book is for you. I hope this project is of interest to you and that you'll assist me by taking part in this campaign. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and take care. Oh, and please be sure to check out the rewards levels.
So that was the promo video for my failed Kickstarter campaign. What I didn't know about Kickstarter is 80% of the revenue for the backing comes from elsewhere, not on the platform. So basically, the creators are bringing in their backers, to a large degree. And with Kickstarter, it's all or nothing with the funding.
Right.
So I set the goal too high. I had some good response, but you can see my artwork back here. I've got a whole bunch of really beautiful artwork that I produced. So I decided, like on Kickstarter, they have all these different rewards levels. Some people maybe just want the book, or they want the book signed, or they want the book and a poster and a this and a that and the other thing. And then some are selling their jewelry and other. And I thought, oh, this is a good opportunity because I have a lot of artwork on hand. So I thought I would combine them and make some sales. But I didn't do any of the groundwork to try and promote it. I suck at promotion. I'm good at creativity, but not so good at marketing and promotion. And so it kind of came and went without showing up on the radar for many people. Kickstarter sometimes promotes projects. They're like projects we love, and I thought, oh, they'll love this, but nobody noticed it.
Not so much. Huh? I would love to see more of your artwork, man. It's what I've been looking at back there. Has had me locked up for quite a while now. I've been looking into it and checking it out. I like the colors. I like
I've got a 2-minute video. I'll get the link to it here. And
is it this one on YouTube?
I know.
That's the one.
Like I said, I've been doing some digging.
I know.
The music is nice on this one. I doubt it's copyrighted. before I met Alex.
I like that. I like it a lot. I like the art's amazing, and then what you wrote there is beautiful. And as far as the suns, I mean, you know, you look into that whole. I mean, you've looked into the whole cosmic egg. Goddamn, you can still burn into those other suns. Anyway, great stuff, man. Beautiful art, and I'm real excited to check out the book. I hope it is headed our way soon. Is there a projected timeline as of now?
I am still looking for the right editor. I've gone through two, and the first one wasn't at all what I was looking for, and the second one, she did some good things, but she ended up creating more work for me than helping me in the end. So I just need at this point a proofreading and someone, you know, like somebody who is in the industry. I've had a lot of offers, but I've had to, I've already spent a bunch of money and haven't got what I wanted. So I need, I'm still trying to get that. So if anyone knows of somebody in the industry that, that's, you know, actually published some books that have sold, I'd like to have somebody with that kind of expertise on it. Cause it's been the writing, I've been writing that book for so long and going over it and over, you know, it's it doesn't need major revisions. I don't want them at this point. I just want to publish the thing.
You just need to get proof, right?
I only know
Josh?
two writers, and it's Billy Zig and Douglas Falk, and they've both wrote fiction about flat Earth, but they've had their books published. I know Douglas is working on his second flat Earth book.
I believe that's right. I believe it's a follow-up. Should be at least the next installment. I do believe. Last I heard, but
Well, we've had both of them on. I could reach out and see, but they do fiction, which is a little different than what you're doing.
Yeah, this isn't there. You know, there's a lot of story mixed in, but there's also a lot of detailed explanation about different things that, you know, related to the tech and stuff like that. Yeah,
I know nothing about the writing world, so I don't know about editors, and
I'm just gun shy now after having, you know, twice spent a bunch of money and ended up, I mean, like one of the editors was not only changing passages, but there were errors in the changes. And then the changes, when compared to the original passages, didn't make sense, altered the meaning of what was being conveyed, and didn't sound as good. So like, what is that? That's butchering, not editing, you know?
Right.
So and this is the problem with self-publishing, is you've got to, you know, find the right people and do all this on your own, rather than having some kind of an apparatus behind you that takes care of it. But they take 93.5% of the share or something like that. It's crazy. They take 90%, the publisher, and then your agent gets 15% of your 10%. And they don't even guarantee that they're gonna like spend any money on marketing to promote your book. It might just be part of their big catalog that's offered, but it's not one of the ones that they're like pushing at the time. So I just decided to go with self-publishing, and we'll see. The problem is, like I said before, I suck at marketing and promotion. So hopefully it's not as stillborn as my Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, I've seen so many different places that claim that they're publishing houses, but they're really just money grabbing. You pay for everything, pretty much. Every part about it. Any prints that are done, you pay for it. I mean, it's not,
well,
they're not out there to make money off of your work. They're out there to make money off of you.
Right. And apparently the bigger publishing houses they're going after people that already have networks of followers and established themselves in one way or another. And they still are expecting that person to do a huge amount of the footwork and the promotion and manage mailing lists and stuff like that. Actually, I got set up for a mailing list. So finally, I'm going to do this with my channel because we were talking about the shadow banning earlier. And you know, the sub count is just at a standstill for many videos now. So I mean, it's backed up to Odyssey. It's on Rumble. It's on BitChute. At least about half of the material. I haven't continued to update to those channels. Odyssey updates automatically, so at least it's backed up. But you know, between the censorship on the mountain after I made the videos about the mountain and what's going on now, I'm kind of like, it's better if I have a way to reach people directly. So it's a landing page for a mailing list, and when the book is ready to come out, then people will be contacted directly, and that way hopefully I can bypass some of the apparatus. I'm not sure if I'll print books myself or if I'll go through the whole Amazon thing, but giving money to Bezos is not thrilling to me.
What?
But unfortunately, like 95% of all books sold now are being sold through Amazon. From what I understand, it's a massive number.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and the fact that the
Bezos has to
information
eat
you're
too.
sharing,
What it started out as.
Right, and he needs those rocket ship rights too.
well, yeah, and the fact that the information you're sharing goes against the official narrative of our history and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure
Big
major
time.
publishers,
They would stay
even
away
if
from it.
an editor, wanted to do it, he's got to get it checked by somebody before he can okay it for you. And you know, I'm sure there's people out there that look at anything real, any truth, and say, no, we're just not going to allow this.
This is why I didn't do a whole lot of interviews with the research also, because I didn't want to like start coming out and become, I didn't know how much this was going to take off. You know, I could wake up one morning, all of a sudden, you know, the channel has exploded and there's millions of views or something. I doubt that'll ever happen because it feels like the knobs have been turned down. Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. It's no, I was going to say that I never intended to get into this biogeology stuff. This is just kind of something that happened to me, and it really sidetracked other plans that I had. And you know, it's become this obsession and this passion. And you know, my family has suffered as a result, and my economy has suffered as a result. It's definitely not something that's profitable. So my only hope is if there's some kind of a synergy that is built between all of these different bizarre, you know, chapters of my life, you know, and then maybe that leads to some book sales, because I've changed countries so many times. There ain't no pension to look forward to here.
I'm sorry, Mike. That wasn't me laughing at all the suffering you were telling us about, although I did have a chuckle. It was the fact that, you know, the suffering that's involved and the detriments and the hits that you take in your life in general once you sort of come to these truths and have to sort of accept that you have to put up or shut up. You either talk
I'm a
about it or be
chiropractor
better.
in a small town, right? There's 35,000 here.
Oh,
It triples. It goes up to 100,000 in the summer, you know. And I'm on a Facebook group here that's got 25,000 people that are all either living here or they have vacation homes here, you know. And it's just like the most brainwashed groups of people that populate this. It's frightening to read the comment sections. So, you know, and my friend Howard, who's an activist, he kept wanting to, like, he's been, you know, promoting the Heartstones and the research I've done on the mountain. His videos have gotten more views than my whole channel. And they're these short little videos that just took off. They're on my channel now. I uploaded them, but and he was always wanting to go in on this Facebook group. I'm like, no, you know, like, I don't want to be known as the crazy chiropractor who thinks the earth is flat, the mountain over there was once an elephant, and all the stones on the beach that you're walking on, those are all petrified organs in this guy's world. Like, you know, how batshit crazy does that sound to a normie?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I approached all of this research the way that I did. I like definitely do not want to be, you know, put into that box, because I don't see any reason to, you know. So anyway, that's
You're right. There is no
talking
reason
about
to.
your
What you're doing is
livelihood.
very real. What you're doing is very, very real. It's not pareidolia. It's not
That's the
just
bizarre
looking
part
and
of it.
doing
It's
this.
not
The
just a
bizarre part
flight of
about
fancy.
it's not a flight of fancy. It's not a flight of outskirts or delusion even. It's very concentrated, very in-depth study.
I believe. Oh, sorry, Cam.
Oh, no, go ahead, Zach, because again, with the respect you should be getting, go ahead.
I was going to say, Plato said it best. You're talking about the masses and, trying to, you can't, okay, here's his quote. Those able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses. So when you come with these, ideas, possibly truths about our real history and what things really are, most people will look at you like you're crazy. Most people are not going to be able to see the truth like that, And yeah, when you're dealing with a small amount of people like that and they're your clientele for your business, you don't want to think them thinking you're the crazy guy on the corner on the weekend screaming the earth is flat and the world's ending or anything like that, That's not good for business. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I'm still not. I mean, I'll talk to you about it with my more open-minded patients, and occasionally write down my YouTube address if they seem like they're more aware. A lot of people have been kind of red-pilled over the years, coming to me in a variety of different ways. But I was thinking when you were talking about a concept that I got from Bob, actually, Cami, which I heard on Globebusters, is just this concept of a preponderance of evidence, and that there are these different stages. Like you've got a wacky idea, and then you gather a little bit of information, and it's like, okay, maybe there's a remote possibility, and then there's a possibility, and then you get enough, and it's like, wow, that might actually be a probability, and then right, and then so that's how I've approached this. I've known, I always had in mind that, okay, we can do laboratory sampling open to that, but I ran into stumbling blocks. Then COVID came along, universities got shut down. I don't know who to contact. My Spanish, this kind of, information is mediocre. I suppose I'm making excuses, but after I sent off the rocks to the laboratory and got back what I got back, I kind of lost my taste for seeking any kind of confirmation from mainstream when it comes to this stuff, because it kind of can't be. If I'm right, then there's so much that has to be wrong. So, it's not like there's going to be some magic test that all of a sudden proved me right and it's going to hit the papers all over the world.
Well, yeah, look at the carbon dating where they found flesh still inside, or bone marrow or something like that inside one of the bones that was supposedly millions of years old.
Yeah, this lady who's saying they're claiming they're dinosaur bones, though, so that feeds into the whole dinosaur narrative, and that it's like just kind of pushing you towards Jurassic Park. I feel, where it's like, oh, we found some soft tissue. Now we got the DNA. Now we can bring the dinosaurs back or something. I don't think it was dinosaur. It was probably some species of giant reptile of some sort or another.
She was blacklisted as well. Because
she struggled a lot. I wasn't suggesting she was trying to mislead, but
I'm just saying, they'll blackball anything that goes against their official narrative. You're gonna have trouble getting any real test done.
I suppose I could, Alex's whole approach is to lean back on satire, right? So if we go back to my first thumbnail. I suppose at some point, if I got desperate, I could say I was just trolling, but I'm not. This is the most elaborate troll in history.
You worked hard. You're on a long game here, buddy. A long game for sure.
A long game.
That's right. Like Zach when he
well,
wants to put
I had
the
to
fear
create
of
my
God.
own ology. It was the only thing that made sense after that, right? So now I'm a titanologist and a biogeologist, and whether that, the reason I created the word biogeology was because I started to say this before, mud fossil theory became so divisive, because, or not divisive, but it didn't fit with the empirical evidence that I was finding.
Right.
Like paramineralization surrounded and encased in mud. It doesn't make sense that the body's going to be gone and all the organs are going to be petrified under those circumstances. 0 sense. So that was
until you start looking at how things really work in reality. Continue on.
Oh, okay. You might know more about this than I do, so I'll have to send some of my rocks to you, Cami. You would probably know way more about what to do with it.
We definitely understand the idea of coming up with a term or a name that fits but doesn't reflect on the current whatever, because even early when we started getting together on Twitter groups and hanging out in chat rooms trying to figure out what the hell is going on, etc., and decided to start doing these same chats, hangouts as a show, getting to know the community. We didn't want to just be, the flat earth chat show or whatever, because we knew it would immediately knee jerk and immediate have the trolls, and we'd already dealt with way too many of them in trying to communicate with people on social media. So
or it becomes
we
a soap
began
opera.
looking for a name
Daytime
that would
television.
be exactly it became, and sure, those get lots of hits, lots of subs, but that's not what we're here for. We don't want that. So it definitely was a long search for us to come up with something that was appropriate. I mean, we tried all kind of stuff, and we didn't. Then we came up with our little FE Easter egg, if you will, with our name. And so then we could talk about whatever. We could talk about, crazy titans, or we could talk about
what is the name?
entities.
What name are you talking about?
Iron Realm Media.
Oh, okay.
FE Iron. So.
Well, iron's a lot more important to this realm than I
And
realized.
then it fits in all kinds of other things. Iron sharpens iron. It's it gets so many ways for us. So
Mike,
this gets back to really
long
important.
Story short, I love the term, man. It's great. And
great. I'm glad you guys love it. I was going to say one thing about the whole melted buildings crew that I just don't understand, and this is all of the above. They're talking about. There's some like the Baghdad battery, and that the buildings themselves might be actually not just harnessing etheric energies, but storing it. And, there are all these interesting theories, like Iwar Anand had his ideas. But what nobody, if Titans existed, then, and the trees as well, then what were the ancient miners mining? What was the realm built? Where were the stones for the realm coming from? And then if you look at all that red brick, blood.
Yeah.
So literally, they built the entire world on the blood and bones of the Titans. That's my take on it. And then all the other
kind of makes Genesis 6:3 pretty literal. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I've been coming across this Archaics guy who just came out of nowhere with a ton of video, or I guess he's been around for years, but I just discovered him this week because a bunch of people were talking about what he describes as the Phoenix event, and he's got a lot of different takes on history, and the guy is incredibly knowledgeable when he speaks, but he's talking a lot about space, so I wonder how much of what he's saying is accurate. But why did I bring him up? It is getting late for me. Archaics. Oh yeah, the Phoenix event. This, some kind of a plasma event, perhaps, or I don't know what he's describing exactly. But a bunch of people started talking about him on my channel, so I saw an interview with him today that was pretty interesting, and it seems like it dovetails a lot. All of these different subjects, whether it's Tartary or star forts or mud floods or Titans or trees, or isn't it interesting how they all dovetail and they all work together?
Yep, it works rather than
But it seems like everybody wants to just pick one damn thing and roll with it, and then
make
everybody else is wrong. So, is that shill behavior, or are they just myopic in their view and unable to see a broader picture, Jerry Camp? Calling him out if he ever sees this, because the guy, He was a total blathering idiot when he went to my channel. And actually, I met him in Denver, and he approached me, and he was like wide-eyed, and he'd heard about the work that I'd been doing on the mountain. And this was before I'd done a single video. And he came up to me because people had been talking about what I had been talking about. And even though I didn't even have a channel, and he was like frantically wanting to talk to me. And this was when we were all dancing in Goosetown Tavern, and Alex was playing, and and I was just like, I couldn't wait to get away from the guy because it just caught me off totally off guard as I was coming back from the bathroom. And we never had any other contact, in comment threads or anything on after that point. And then he comes out with this hit piece video on how idiotic my mountain was, and it was a joke. He just completely ignored all of my research. He didn't address it. He just claimed it was something based on what he thought it looked like, and rolled with that, and mocked me in the process. So anyway, I just had to get that off my chest.
Hey, get it out. We love a good rant here, brother. We love it.
I rant every show usually.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean,
part of the catharsis, part of it.
The melted building crew, I just, some of the stuff I haven't been able to go into because they're all coming off as these all-knowing, everything is this, the whole realm is this, and I'm like, okay, well, what about volcanoes, and what about the tree stumps, and what about Hangman 1128's footage, which, by the way, are you all familiar with that channel?
I'm not.
You should.
Wait, that does seem familiar.
Channel.
Zach, didn't you tell us about that channel?
He's the guy that's got he's like what I've done with the mountain and the Titans, he's done with the trees. And we're not talking about the plateau trees. We're talking about, I don't know, places in Colorado. I'm not even sure where he's located, but to me, his footage is undeniable. He's got all the different kinds of ways in which sap petrifies. Yeah, how this he'll show you, like, here's a tree that's in the process of decomposing and rotting. Notice how it breaks off into these pieces, and then he picks up a piece like that, and then he turns, and there'll be like a 50-foot version of the exact same thing behind him. It's all fractal, and
Colorado's got amazing examples of that, so you might be right about it being in Colorado.
We have gods, I guess,
examples in our backyard.
Yeah,
actually.
I mean, he's showing cypresses and all these different trees that are like 10-mile wide trunks, but it's not sawed off. They're all fragmented. Hangman 1028.
There was an idea that Josh had about what could have happened. What caused this cataclysmic event? And it came to him when we were talking about the Tower of Babel. And what if, this is an electrical realm, and if there is, a Gaussian surface above and one below, and you built a conductor in between them that got close enough that it actually discharged. And he was thinking it was more about the language, about how, maybe we all did speak etherically at one time.
So we use Babel to poke a hole in the firmament, you mean? Something like that?
Well, yeah, just
like a massive pulse or something.
Yeah, well, no, if you have, two surfaces and there's static electricity in between them, if you take your finger and you get closer to that other surface, like the doorknob, you'll get a shock off of it. Well, what if the Tower of Babel got so tall, so close to the upper surface, that it created that discharge to happen? And that would be huge. That would be, astronomically bigger than any lightning bolt or any small discharge like that in comparison. But it would probably rock the whole place with a big giant.
Like bridging a spot inside your computer, like trying to jump using a pencil lead to jump to. Back in the video game days, we used to do all kind of crazy stuff in our Xboxes. So, but yeah, that idea.
That was a hack with phones, actually. And they showed it in war games. There's a point where he's on the run and he's at a payphone, and he takes off the thing. Yeah, and he takes one of those old pop tops, which is a conductive, and then he holds it to the receiver, and then to the point where the coin, not the coin, the key for the coin box, and it completes a circuit, and boom, you can make a call for free. That actually worked.
Shall we play a game?
Well, I want to make sure we leave stuff for the next time.
I know.
we have
There's
you
so
on,
much.
Mike.
Good Lord. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, Mike.
Well, we
I've
really
written
haven't
down
even
so
gone
many
into the
notes.
research at all. So
we didn't even touch that
we talked
mountain,
around
man.
it.
That's what I'm saying. We've been everywhere around it. We've talked about your amazing history. Has been phenomenal. To hit the past you've had is three movies.
You want to finish with just another fun?
Yeah,
Hell
please,
yes.
please.
Just a fun little video clip. This is from another chapter of my life that we haven't talked about at all. So I put myself through college in Santa Barbara as a waiter. I worked at the Biltmore on the water, and I worked as a waiter for 10 years in resort hotel also. I was a room service waiter. And then when I was 29, I moved to Europe as an exchange student for my junior year of college to Italy. And I studied in Siena, which was a big walled city, and didn't know anything about the star forts, but it was an amazing place. And that's where I met my partner, the mother of my kids. And then I went from there to Padova, which was another star citadel. And then I lived 2 years in Rome. And then when I moved to Stockholm, another star citadel, Stina's family had a place on an island, and there was a big star fort there. So when I started to get introduced to the whole idea of star forts, it was just like, because I realized I had been in tons of these and never had seen any aerial views. I didn't understand that there was this incredibly complex structure to them and the thickness of the walls, and so that was a big eye opener. But I digress. So then I went back to the U.S. and I finished my degree, which was in Italian cultural studies with a minor in philosophy. So it was a classics degree, essentially. I just wanted to try a bunch of stuff because I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I didn't want to be in IT. So then I moved to Rome as an English teacher. Sure enough, I end up in IT again. Because after a year of teaching English, I was so bored. I sent out a bunch of CVs, resumes to all the different American companies that had bigger businesses in Italy, and I ended up getting a call back from IBM, which was unexpected. And I went. They called me in for an interview for a position as a technical writer. They didn't know anything about my hacking past. I didn't tell them about it. My record was expunged, so I didn't, I just, I let that go unsaid in the interviews. And then I worked there for a year and moved to Stockholm and got to Stockholm just right around 9/11. And so I had two companies that wanted to hire me. I was going to continue with the tech writing. And right when I got there, the bottom went out of the .com industry, and Boo.com was the first big company to go belly up, and then a whole bunch of companies went down and the stocks crashed, and that was the recession that came just as I got there. That was a few months before 9/11. My daughter was born right around 9/11. So then I was soul searching and trying to decide what to do with my life. And I went back to school to become a chiropractor. And that was 5 years of university in Stockholm in Swedish. I have my master's thesis here. But it's all in Swedish. But if you guys want to run it on Google Translate, you can. Anyway, long story short, one of the guys that was in school with me was this total computer genius, and he had created this software for practice management software for manual therapy clinics, like massage therapists, chiropractors, all of your bookkeeping, your soap notes for all of the stuff about the patient. And he took it way beyond that, and he presented an early version of this to me, and I just was blown away, and he wanted me to join him. And so I co-founded this company with him, which he sold this last year for a big amount of money. So I should have stayed with him because then I'd be set financially. But I left it behind 10 years ago when I moved to Spain, and all of this other stuff wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done that. So it was a good thing. But the name of the company is Clinic Buddy. So if you search on YouTube for Clinic Buddy, it's one word, Clinic Buddy. You'll see the first video that I ever made was I was working my ass off with Windows Movie Maker for days trying to create this video. And it really illustrates the amazing software, and it shows one of the things that we did that nobody else was doing was we integrated all of the different tests that therapists were doing in their clinic, like balance and sway and range of motion tests and thermography and all of these things into the software. So any test that was run was already integrated with the software package, and it would automatically be converted into text and numbers and put into the journal, which was then signed. And we were the only ones in the industry that had hardware encryption keys. And so, yeah, Clinic Buddy, if anyone looking for it, I should be able to find it. I probably just put everyone to sleep. Was that interesting or no? Clinic.
Yes.
Buddy. No results.
Yeah, this was awesome, Mike. This is how we like to at least have the first conversation with people before they bring anything like a presentation or anything like that. Yeah, and you've been, 3.5 hours, man. That's just amazing. The same thing happened with Crow. Crow thought he was going to come and do he's like, all right, I got 45 minutes to an hour. Thought he was going to come and do a presentation. And we just sat around and bullshitted like this the whole time. And he sat here for 3.5 hours too. He's like, I'm going to go get a drink. You know, let's just hang out. Yeah, but yeah, we don't expect you to bring anything.
I wish it wasn't almost 4 a.m. because I feel great now, but I'm probably not going to feel good tomorrow.
No, tomorrow might be a different story. Might be different.
But it's a party. So I just sent a link in the Zoom chat to the video in question. And then I'll share a picture also if I can find it real quickly. Where was that?
Big shout out to everybody in chat. You guys are the best. I love it. Someone asked for something. Someone else is like, yeah, I think I know where it is. I'll go find it. Yeah. It's just great people that we have. Small little knit community, but scouts are the best.
I had it and then I dropped it. Hang on.
Yeah, and we just scratched the surface. There's so many topics we didn't touch on. Yeah, you seem like a really bright guy. I'd love to just sit and pick your brain for hours.
Got an open invitation here anytime, Zach. I think Mike knows that.
we integrated them with the FLIR cameras. That's the camera that Ken Wheeler used, you know, for the. Let's wait. It's almost over. Yeah, it was kind of comprehensive. Imagine that was 12 years ago. We were a bit ahead of our time there. People didn't quite get it, and we had the whole thing designed so that any of the systems that were using it could collate all of the data from all of their patient visits and be able to extract any of the data from the tests or from any, you know, age or whatever they were looking at. They could pull it all out and chunk that as massive meta studies. So it would have done wonders for you know, medical research and other things if they were really interested in getting people healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the FLIR camera there, that infrared where you could see the color on her back, that was FLIR is a company that makes infrared for the military and sells all over the world, and they're Swedish based. And my colleague Jesper went to them and pitched them, and we ended up getting one of those cameras to use and to integrate with the software. And it's amazing because you could look at somebody's back as a chiropractor and you could see where their pain was before they told you where their pain was. And you know, it's incredible for something like mammography, you know, like for early detection of cancer. Not that the approaches to treating cancer are very safe or effective in my opinion, but you know, there's much better ways of doing it, but they're not accepted by the mainstream. But one of the, you know, the mammogram, they squish the breast and then they radiate the breast. So they're creating all kinds of micro tears in the tissue and then hitting it with radiation. It's like, is that why there's a direct correlation between the number of mammograms a woman has had and breast cancer?
Why has that metastasized? Strange. What's
It's all over the place now.
cancer?
Before it was just in one little point, you know. And the interesting thing about those infrared cameras is they can detect tumors at a much faster rate, earlier detection. And the reason is that the tumors have an increased metabolic process, so they're taking up more of the nutrients. And one of the ways that they've proven this is by injecting radioactive sugar into people's bloodstream, and then they do I think it's called a skint, and they basically do an X-ray where they're looking to see where the concentrations of the radioactive material are gathering in the body, and they gather in the places that have the highest metabolic processes, and that's the tumors, right? Because the cells are acting unnaturally and they're growing and they're using more resources than they should, and they're not going into apoptosis when they're supposed to, or at least that's what they tell us about it. But anyway.
Yeah, we could talk for hours about the medical industry and, you know, alternative, what do they call them? Holistic? Or they like to demonize anything that isn't in pill form.
Naturopathic. Yeah, all sorts of good terms that they don't like.
Yeah, this goes back to the whole shutting down of the medical schools. I can't remember when it happened, and there's a famous character that was tasked by Rockefeller to do the dirty deeds of shutting down all the alternative healers, and chiropractic was under fire for many decades. Most people don't know that in the 1920s, chiropractors were being jailed for practicing medicine without a license. And then when they got out of jail, they just go right back to adjusting again, because they were like, we're not practicing medicine. We're not doing anything you guys do. We don't give drugs. We don't do surgery. We don't give prognoses. We don't give diagnoses either. You know, we're doing something completely distinct from what you're doing for entirely different reasons than you're doing it. But still, they were jailing the chiropractors, and it was the Spanish flu apparently that saved the profession, because after the flu came and went, they did this massive study to see like what the survival rates were for the different groups and the different hospitals, and apparently the two highest survival rates were among the outdoor hospitals where people were getting fresh air and sunlight. Really? That's good for you?
What?
Imagine that.
No way. And the chiropractic offices, and the number that came out of that study was a 792% higher survival rate than the hospitals. For a flu, that's a weird thing because chiropractic doesn't treat the flu. So it's, it's just, anyway, that went on for decades. They were trying to shut the chiropractic profession down. And then in 1980, I think the case finished in 1990, the AMA lost a landmark lawsuit at the Supreme Court level against a man named Chester Wilk. And he basically proved that the AMA was engaging in racketeering and had been trying to shut down the chiropractic profession for decades, and doing that by brainwashing all the new students that were coming through medical college and blackballing all medical doctor who was willing to collaborate with chiropractors. That was all proven in a court of law. And the AMA lost. So then they got, sneaky after that.
And
anyway.
how can
Started
people not see
portraying him
that they, question that they haven't done this before? I'm sure you're aware Royal Raymond Rife and his work, and there's still people out there today that use Rife machines to heal people, but they can't claim that that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're experimenting. Or
mechanism versus vitalism, microbe versus terrain,
yeah,
Rife versus chemotherapy and radiation therapy. It's a sad state of affairs, and more and more people are finding out about all this stuff, which is, gives hope.
Greatest apocalypse ever.
They find out about it, but they also, you win in the court cases and that, you still have a long way to come in, like mainstream, where they portray chiropractors like Alan on 2.5 Men, and again,
Yes,
they go out of
that's
their
a very
way
good point.
to really, really make it look like a stupid occupation. I mean,
They
you can't.
do, don't they?
That right there is a really, really good clue, is when they do so much work to take a profession and make fun of it. Stop and take a look at it.
Yeah, there's a website. I don't even know if it's still there. I haven't looked for many years, but it was called Quackwatch, and basically it was just a long list of everything that works presented as if it was pseudoscience and doesn't work and will probably just cost you a lot of money, or worse, might hurt you. So stay away from all of it. And basically it was anything that wasn't drugs and surgery or physiotherapy, which is the only sanctioned manual therapy in medicine, and most of them don't know a whole lot about what they're doing, unfortunately, because they're all brainwashed by a faulty paradigm.
That's what they paid all that money for, to go to that school for so long. How could it be wrong?
They got their degree, so they must be experts, right?
It costs that much money. It has to be real, right? It has to be.
I paid for my Thetan level. You're fucking right. I know what I'm talking about.
Look at my big bank account. Look at my furrowed brow. It must be real.
Can you not read my signature?
They're going so far now as to tell people that they shouldn't.
It's not real. It's just a ride.
Medical concerns on the internet. You should not research your body or how it works anymore. That's bad. Just listen to what the doctors say. Stop trying to understand how everything in your body works. It's beyond you. It's pretty much what they're saying.
Yeah, it's 100% disempowerment. There was never any talk about health through this whole last 2 years. It was always about case numbers and deaths and what are we going to do and what are we going to force people to do. It's like, hello, what about, sorry, my monitor's about to go off. What about, vitamin D, vitamin C, intravenous, sunlight, dewormers, you name it. It's like there's always all these other options, but no, it's just that. We got to just do that.
And not for nothing, but I think maybe
step right up,
monitor getting ready to shut off all by itself might be clues to speaking to something bigger, and maybe time for you to hit the hay, get some sleep, get a little.
I do need to go. Yeah,
Hey,
it's been a lot of fun, and I haven't stayed up
Absolutely,
this
Michael.
late in a long time.
Well, I'm glad you did it with us, man. I appreciate the hell out of it.
Well, it was fun. I wasn't expecting to be a whole retrospective of my life. This reminds me of a movie I saw with Al Pacino once, where he was a detective and he was in this room where these two people, they're at this crime scene, and he starts talking about all the stuff. He's like, "How do you know all this?" And he's like, "Well, it's like the wonder of me, where it's like when people meet for the first time, and it's like they share every story that they have that's like unique about them, and then but
No, I think we still
wasn't
have further to
expecting
go
it
with
we
to
you.
still got more to go. I think so too, Cammy. I think so too.
I've talked to him for longer than we have tonight. We have further to go. But you know what? It's so good to
But
talk
it
to you
is,
again, and it's
yeah.
good to see how like you're plodding along in the background. I've been plodding around in the background, and like all of these dots that we're making really are starting to connect slowly but surely. But I think it pays off, and I appreciate everything you do so much. I understand the obsessions. I understand the money going down the drain. I understand like all of the different things. But there's got to be a reason that we're so pulled and inspired to do this.
Yeah, people might have this vision of me when they see the videos. Oh, here I am. I'm a doctor in Spain, and I've got a clinic, and I'm in this beachfront town, and it's like they really knew.
They really.
It's like it's a mess, and a lot of it has to do with all this research, and then I was already a pretty wacky character long before all this stuff came along. So,
well,
I like it, man. I gotta say, I
like everything about your
mutual.
wackiness.
I like all of you.
Well, I'm glad to hear
the
it,
door's
man. I hope you
open,
come
man.
back. It's always open. You have a link that never expires.
Well, it hasn't yet. It's been going for a few years now. I don't know that it won't ever, but
Well, so far it's going strong. And it is your key to come back anytime, sir. And like I said, we'll get with you on an earlier, time frame for one of those TFR shows.
That would be good. Fortunately, I didn't have anything pressing in the morning. Or it is morning. Oh, I
it's
should
there.
just stay
You
up.
made it. Just hang out. Yeah.
Let's just keep going.
Just roll with it.
No,
like me in my 20s.
I really do need some
No,
sleep.
I know. And
Guys,
like
the
sometime during
links
the
are
day. Yeah.
chat. I'm sorry. They're in the description there for the show. Please, if you somehow have missed this channel, go over there, hit it up, go check it out, get over there and find out what's going on with this mountain that we need to get to next time you come.
But this, yeah, I got it for the people who are sitting here. Was it? But so this wasn't on Iron Realm Media. This is on another channel.
It's on our backup channel. Yeah, we got a strike. What, yesterday? They sent that video. I mean that email yesterday.
Maybe you could just send me a link to it. So
we will.
I like to download this stuff for.
It's our
posterity.
backup channel, the Iron Realm Media podcast channel, and we definitely had so many great people show up and hang out here with us, even though we're kind of doing this with a lame wing. And that was me too. I'm usually in the chat, throwing questions from the chat, getting questions to the chat, but because I had to change to my phone for the majority of the show, the storm finally let up about 15 minutes ago when you guys saw me pop back up here. So, but yeah, I'm normally more active with the chat and keep it going with them as well. So my apologies. I love you guys. Thank you for being there. And thank you for all those other channels that I wasn't there on, hanging out in the chat there as well. Thank you all for being here.
Actually ended up with a bot somewhere on Rockfin, which was interesting.
I didn't know that even was a thing.
You used to be able to make moderators from the people in chat, but I guess they took that function away. Now you have to add specific emails to make somebody a moderator, which is a pain in a lot of people's posterior.
I'm also going to talk to a guy I know that might have some information that could help you out. I don't know that he does, but I'll reach out to him and see what he can find out. As far as
the editing,
the book, yeah, he's got a few out there.
Yeah, I think Nemo made reference earlier that James True might be a.
Yeah, that's I didn't hear it, but that was who's been on my mind since that came up was James. So yeah, I'll reach out and see what he can help you find out. So definitely.
Then we have Dawn and Dave.
It's all written over here in my little pad to the left. I've got it all ready to
We had Dawn and David on. They're published. We had
That's true. That's true. They had a nice book.
we had
Epic book.
Andy Kaufman on. He's published.
I have huge respect for Andy Kaufman, and Thomas Cowan as well. I'd love to meet him. We didn't talk about the heart stones at all, or the helical heart, or the discoveries,
right, which
in
would
those
have led
stones.
to the
And
heart map, which I would like to ask about. So yeah,
there's a lot to cover just on the hearts. So.
Come back, man. Thank you.
We'll
Thank you.
You're
do.
doing next
We'll do.
Friday, right? I know.
Next Friday, right?
Seriously.
It's already lined up. No, we'll let you have a break. We'll let you get a weekend of rest.
See how long it takes me to recover from
Right.
this.
Right.
We'll give you at least
Thank
a week,
you, man.
and then we'll ask again. But thank you so much. It's been an absolute
Awesome. Well,
blast.
wonderful
4
people.
o'clock in the morning. You are so awesome.
I hope
You're the
nobody
man.
got bored.
No, not at all.
It was fun, definitely for me, but a lot of it was about me. So everybody likes to talk about themselves, right?
It was the best.
It was. It was
Thank
absolutely
you so
awesome.
much for making my first invite like one of our best shows ever. I rock. I'm sorry. Now I feel like I do when it's like bringing somebody like Mike on. So thank you. It's so good to talk to you.
My pleasure to talk to you and to see you again briefly on screen.
Right. And we did get to nerd out more on the rocks and things like that. We actually have a lot of the work to go over. It's coming close to the time.
Well, before you head
at
out,
some point, I'd like to spread some of these out. So at some point, I'm happy to send a care package to you so that, other people have some of these. In case you decide you want to do some testing on them with your
I would love that very much.
instrumentation.
I have
you
that
would know what to do far more than me.
And also, I know like it's a pipe dream, but you can't have a dream unless you put it out to the universe. They just changed the airline restrictions into the U.S. today, where a vaccine is no longer required to fly into the U.S. And so maybe at some point I can get a big hug from you and test in person. Just putting some hopes out there.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about spelunking titans.
Oh, maybe I'll get over there and splunk some titans, or you know what?
That was the title of my live stream last night because I went back. First ever one that I did. I did one on my phone.
You did
last
good.
week.
You did good. I mean, you worked through problems and that. I loved it.
Yeah, it was fun to do, and it's nice to have a more direct approach to sharing this information because I got a backlog of so many videos that I'm just not getting to because the editing is mind-numbing. It takes so long, and I want to upgrade my computer, but it's like actually I'm gonna tap Jaron's advice so he can help me set up the right thing. I'm totally not up to date on hardware whatsoever. You can give me some tips.
Real quick before you head out, Mike, I dropped a link in this Zoom chat to the show on the backup channel. That way you'll be able to get to it.
Great, I see it. Thank you. And I didn't share any information as far as the channel goes. I tried to get to my MailerLite account for the mailing address, but it's asking me for a 6-digit code, which didn't come on my phone. So I'm not sure how to get that code. So I can't give you that yet, but I'll pass it on if you want to put it in the show notes for anybody that wants to just be on the list if when the book finally is finished and comes out.
I will say the Kickstarter link should be included in our show descriptions. So
yeah, the Kickstarter campaign is done, but it's actually that video that you guys showed is on there and a whole bunch of information about the artwork and it also links to the channel, but the channel is Stellium 7 and it's not hard to find.
And I think I did include the full list.
I've been dropping his chat link in the live show. Say hi to Liz, who's 3 o'clock in the morning there. Liz is in Scotland, but Mike is in Spain and it's 4 o'clock there. So welcome everybody across the pond in the middle of the night. Thank you so much. We have several people from across the pond that, again, Liz is going to kill us because you're so damn interesting. She can't quit watching.
Can't leave, right.
We're going to hear about it because she's also there at the show, in the morning shows. Liz was at the show this morning at 5 o'clock in the morning too. So way to be, Liz. You are the Iron Maiden.
She is the Iron Maiden. And technically, on a flat Earth, isn't everybody across the pond?
It's just one pond.
It's just one big
It's all a
pond to
pond.
begin with. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, there was something. Hold on.
Buddy, I promise.
I know. I
I agree,
was going
Liz.
to go. I'm going to go soon. I promise.
No,
All
I
right,
have
we're gonna all
cats,
say
my
good
cat,
night.
No,
so
it's not. Okay,
they're
this
ready
this
for
code
me.
is not coming in. It's not even coming to my junk mail. So I don't know why it doesn't work. I'll have to look into that. Trying to get it going. All right.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care.
You do the very
Good
same.
night.
Good night. Bob sends you his love, by the way, and we'll talk soon. Maybe when we're up and running on Globuster, sneaky on there too. I know we've been talking a lot about you and your work. So
Yeah, we were supposed to do it, and then he got sick. So
Yep.
It was right at the end of the Kickstarter campaign. So there wasn't any. That was the only rush. But yeah, whenever he would like me on, it'd be an honor to be on Globusters.
well, it'd be an honor to have you. Again, what you're doing is really, really amazing, and it means the world. It really does. The world would like truth. Thank you, sir. Sweet
Adios.
dreams. All right.
Ciao.
Adios. Thanks again, Mike. See you soon. Thanks everybody else for hanging out. What an awesome show. Thanks, Kimmy. You killed it.
Nailed it.
Damn it, I did.
Nailed it. What was that one show with all the dinosaurs? The dragons. That's what it was. Dragon Tales, I think. Something on PBS. Because the scales, and they would transport the kids, and PBS does. Anyway, I think it's time to get the fuck up out of here.
Might be. Love y'all.
Love you guys.
Thanks, y'all.
Always fun. Always a pleasure. Make sure you tune in every Tuesday and Friday morning for Walt, Zach, and I. Hell, maybe even Cammy if Mike shows up for a little bit of Have No
right.
Sphere.
Yeah.
No, it's Ironworks. This is Have No Sphere. Tuesday and Friday mornings is the Ironworks. Truth Frequency Radio, TFRlive.com. Anyway, we'll see you guys around. Be good. Be well. We love you. Bye-bye.